Folks, any good true crime mystery starts with a 911 phone call. Well, this one sure did, and now it's progressed on to one of the greatest and most insane cases in all of legal history in the United States. That's right, we're talking about Sarah Boone, the Suitcase killer. I'm John. I'm an actual 911 dispatcher. Holy moly, can you believe it? We're going to be talking Sarah Boone tonight. I'm very excited. I've been working on this all day. But today's the day. Today's the day that we found out so much about Sarah Boone. We found out so much about George Torres. So often I talk about on these cases, I speak for the victims. And what would the victims say? Well, tonight you're going to hear from video taken by the police on prior occasions where they talked to George Torres. I'm going to play for you multiple videos taken by Sarah on other occasions in which she was degrading and humiliating him, and he wasn't fighting for his life. Speaking of fighting for his life, the lawyer, Sarah Boone's defense attorney, you could just tell this is what it's like when you go to trial like in 2 weeks in a major murder trial that's been completely fucked up defense-wise for months now, because every little thing is going wrong for him. As you watch him throughout the day, he is standing up and like getting upset. He's fighting with the judge. Today, he asked for a full dismissal of the case based on prosecutorial misconduct. It was amazing. At one point, he just says objection.
Your Honor, I object!
And why is that, Mr. Reed?
Because it's devastating to my case!
Overruled.
Good call!
It was basically like that today when you were watching this. And I took 45 minutes of footage and I condensed it down to about 20. I'm going to do the best I can to make it make sense to you. But basically everything that Sarah Boone's defense was based on today just tumbled like a house of cards. And it was like watching watching Lionel Hutz out there or Jim Carrey here from Liar Liar tried to put it all together. We first broke down Sarah Boone months and months and months ago. There was a show where we didn't have much going on. We were just going to like talk about like how phones work. And then I just couldn't abide that. I was staying up late all night and I came across Sarah Boone and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a lady on trial for murder because she zipped up her boyfriend in a suitcase. We broke down the 911 phone call in which she dials 911. She calls 911. She says, my boyfriend and I were playing hide and go seek last night. I zipped him up in a suitcase. And now he's dead. They tried to give him CPR instructions. They show up. The story doesn't really make sense. They were drinking. Here's the best part, though, today about everything becoming unraveled. The absolute thing that we've just stopped looking at because it's so absurd, and it's the biggest thing that attracted me to this case. Sarah Boone kills George Torres by zipping up him in a suitcase. Because they were playing hide and go seek. This is the lie. This is the absurd lie that we have all just shrugged and said, well, Sarah's just such an absurd person that this must have been what happened. This is the lie that is now causing her case to sink. Let me explain why. Testimony from experts has come on. They've interviewed Sarah multiple times. They've given her multiple examinations and tests. The crux of her defense is that she has battered spouse syndrome, intimate partner violence, PTSD, other things that are going on with her. That once George was in the suitcase, he became irate, threatened her with physical harm. She felt that she could not let him out of the suitcase. In fact, took steps to keep him in that suitcase with a baseball bat as he started to extricate himself. And because she sensed imminent danger of life or limb, she felt no need to let him out of the suitcase. Well, as we all know, they were not playing hide and go seek when she zipped him up in a suitcase. We're going to show tonight that Sarah was the predominant aggressor of spousal abuse in that relationship, of battered woman abuse. In fact, one of the state's psychiatric expert actually testified on the stand today, or possibly in a deposition. I don't know if it was in front of the jury, but she believed that Sarah was the predominant aggressor. She was the one who was starting things. And I'll show you videotape tonight where George says in his own voice, she always starts stuff with me. And I guess I'll leave it to you to decide, but it was just an amazing day. And so Sarah Boone zips up George Torres in his suitcase. And we have to wonder, was this really a game? Was it really about alcohol? Was it about long-standing abuse? Suppose that George Torres had zipped up Sarah Boone in a suitcase, this trial would have been over a long time ago, because men would have been seen easily as the predominant aggressor in a intimate violence situation. But because it's Sarah, and because Sarah is Sarah, she's been able to forestall this trial for so long. But I think what came to light today is that Sarah is a belligerent, drunken bully with no dignity, that she harasses law enforcement, that she harasses 911 dispatchers, that she has been a problem citizen, not only to her neighbors, but to Winter Park and other authorities there in Orlando. There was hours today of 911 phone calls being played, of footage of prior domestic violence calls, police officers arriving on the scene. Sarah always worried that she's going to get arrested. There were no contact orders in place that always saw George getting arrested, but never Sarah. But before we get into that, I'm just going to go to the trial footage today. I did my best to edit it down. This comes courtesy of Court TV. I'm sure lots of channels are showing this tonight. I'm not a lawyer. I just pretend to be one on the internet. But as I was watching live today, I just couldn't believe some of this stuff. So I've got a few highlights here from before and after lunch, before the big media presentation by the state. I'm going to take you point by point as well as I can through everything that happened. So this starts this morning. Basically, just as a background, earlier during the defense, James Owen, Sarah Boone's defense lawyer, called an expert witness to the stand. She testified that through careful examination, it was her expert opinion that Sarah Boone suffered from battered spouse syndrome and PTSD. And so the stage was set for an excellent defense, at least so we thought. Then the state's witness, psychiatric witness, got on the stand and said Sarah has battered spouse syndrome and she suffers from PTSD and a myriad of other things. Traits of narcissism, alcohol abuse syndrome, all of these things. And then she says, but none of that matters because Sarah said in her own words that just prior to zipping up George in the suitcase, they were having a grand old time. That's right. They were having fun. They were playing. Sarah told a story about her hiding in the bathtub, running around, they were doing arts and crafts all day. In her own words, they didn't have two nickels to rub together. They had nowhere to go. They drank a big bottle of wine. I guess they bought wine in bulk from Costco or something, Kirkland's wine. I don't know. It was some sort of, it was called a Magnum bottle of wine. And I can't even imagine these things, but they both got lit on it, I guess. And they were having a great day. What's funny is when you talk to Sarah, she always talks about how she has a great day and how she has a strict bedtime. That's something that constantly came up whenever I was watching her interactions with police. But so now the entire defense is based on the idea that battered spouse syndrome is the reason why Sarah felt fear and couldn't let George out of the suitcase. That's the crux of everything. This expert gets on the stand and says she had a great day. And so I don't believe that she was in fear. Objection, sidebar, get the jury out of here. And here we go.
Any other argument?
The totality, if you read that deposition and all that we talked
I
about.
specifically asked you, Mr. Owens, to point out for me excuse me. I specifically asked for you to point out specific portions of the deposition that are at odds with either A, the opinion that was previously given, or B, what was proffered to. You have provided me pages 45, 46 of the deposition relating to specific opinions.
I think you could tell here that the judge has been upset for a long time, and he's not ready for any shenanigans. The attorney here, James Owens, is arguing that during the examination of this witness, that she said that she had had some conversations in person and on the phone with the state's attorney regarding her opinion. She had always said that she was going to say that Sarah had battered spouse syndrome and that she had PTSD and these other things. So the defense attorney thought it was, boom, we're knocking it out of the park. Both experts for both sides agree that Sarah has these things. It's perfect. However, the layup shot was just that this witness, as I said, yeah, but she wasn't experiencing those things at the time. So it really doesn't matter that she had battered spouse because she was having a fun time. And so now the problem is this expert witness, this psychiatrist, is she allowed to testify as to whether or not Sarah's state of mind was one of fear. The attorney, James Owens, his essential plot point is that, well, that's up to the jury to decide. That's a substantive matter of fact. That's something that the trial jury has to figure out for themselves. He's upset because he sees this expert go up there and basically say, in not so many words, she's guilty. She didn't say that, of course, but that's what he's upset about. And of course, the prosecution's arguing, like, well, experts battle in every case, and an expert can say that someone has this state of mind, and another expert will, a defense expert will say, well, they had this state of mind. And then the jury just goes back and forth. And suffice it to say, James Owens is not happy, and neither is the judge. You will hear precious little from the prosecution today. The judge did most of the heavy lifting for him.
On whether or not Ms. Boone suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. Are there any other portions of the depo that you would like to point out for me? I am not going to read an 87-page deposition and continue to waste our jurors' time as we try to find a solution for the situation that is now before us. If there are specific portions of this deposition that are at odds with the opinions that have been proffered and or provided so far, I would ask you to direct my attention to them. Ms. Boone, have you been paying attention to the questions and answers and the readbacks of both the proffered testimony and the opinion testimony?
Yes.
Basically, the judge is asking her now, are you aware of what's going on? Are you aware that she came up here and she had already said in a deposition, meaning she had testified but not in front of the jury. She basically said in front of the lawyers and in front of Sarah Boone what she intended to say in front of the jury. The reason why they do this is pretty simple. You don't want to be surprised by what a witness is going to say on the stand, right? A good lawyer never asks a question he doesn't know the answer to. And he has no reason, if he had known that this psychiatrist was going to say, yeah, but none of it matters, none of it applies because she was having a great day, he never would have entered the line of questioning that he did. He would have said, I have no further questions for this witness, or he would have tried to undermine her credibility. He would not have asked her to reaffirm the opinion that Sarah definitely had these things, because it led inevitably down the road that it did. So the judge is just making sure that Sarah understands that there's this deposition that doesn't contain that information, and then what she said in the courtroom that does. Now, the purpose of the deposition, of course, is basically you go on the record, and if someone says something in a deposition that they later don't repeat in the trial, or it's a factual mismatch, what you can do is you can actually bring in the information from the deposition to impeach the credibility of that witness. So they could say, I want to show that this person on the witness stand is substantively lying or concealing facts, and for that reason, I would like to read into the record what this person said earlier during the deposition. I want to welcome to the show Drew Breezy. He's a police officer with 30 years of experience. He's been closely watching this case. He's an actual cop with 30 years of experience. He's down there in Florida right now. He thought about actually getting on the witness list. He's disappearing for some reason. Drew, you're an actual cop. Get in here. Maybe he's having some trouble. I'll keep going a little bit and I'll let him come in when he's ready. But Drew's waiting backstage. He's champing at the bit to get in here.
And are you on board with the strategy not to seek to strike that opinion?
Yes.
Thank you. With regard to the proffered testimony, I'm going to permit now in open court, and I will oversee the deposition for you, Mr. Owens, to inquire as to those opinions.
So here's the thing. We talked about this earlier. There was this other deposition, and it doesn't match what happens in court. So the judge realizes there's this disconnect, and it's a disadvantage for the defense attorney. So there's a remedy for this. He's going to say, well, I'll tell you what you could do. We'll excuse the jury. We'll send them out. And you can have a brand new deposition right now. You can ask this witness whatever you want to know without being in the presence of the jury. Of course, the state's going to know what you're going to ask them to. And it's basically just a test run. And that way you'll be able to say later in front of the jury what you're doing. So it gives them an option to give him a deposition right now. And as you'll see, he'll be like, right now, I wasn't ready for this. And in effect, at one point, he has to go to lunch early because he's just sweating a whole bunch. Drew, 30 years of experience, police officer. You're just joining the show now. You're just getting away from a baseball game maybe or something. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm just tired. Really, really tired.
Did you get to watch any of the Sarah Boone coverage today?
No, I started to. I was actually working on the video for day 3, and what'll happen is I'll put on the trial live, and I'll end up getting so sidetracked that it'll take me all day. So I stopped what I was doing watching. Then I had a Zoom meeting at noon. And then Jackson came home a little while late. You know what I mean? It just led into one thing, led to another. So I never finished what I needed to finish for day 3, because I think I got some good stuff. I mean, she testified in her own defense, and it was just like she's, I don't want to give a spoiler, but they made her unzip the suitcase. The
I know.
suitcase, not
That
not
was
the
what
suitcase.
that was this trial's equivalent of putting on the glove. It was amazing. And you know what? Just reflecting on it today, it made me realize like that was the moment. Just seeing kind of the way that she operates with the suitcase. My operating theory is now that George was probably unconscious when he went into that suitcase. That's my theory now. I've never believed this whole we were playing hide and go seek thing and that he got in there. I don't believe that. Does any of this I mean, is that a crazy theory at this point? Is it more crazy to think that, or is it more crazy to believe that Sarah and George were actually playing hide and go seek and he got in there voluntarily?
It's not crazy. I think it's I don't I don't know, but I think he actually got in the suitcase on his own, but because he spoke when he was in it.
Well, he might have woken up. I realized that he was conscious. We'll show
Right.
video tonight that shows you that George, he's got a history of domestic violence charges, and the way it was kind of painted, particularly in the light of the battered spouse defense, is that this was a bad guy. But
Yeah,
I'm going to show
definitely.
you video tonight of this guy, and when Sarah interacts with him, he is a kicked puppy. He's 109 pounds. I don't know how much that figures into it, but he does not have much of a dog in him when it comes up to standing up to her. And I'll show this tonight, she is much more rough with him, much more brutal around the edges. In fact, one of the videos that the jury got to see today before they adjourned for the day at 5:30 was Sarah, and you'll see this tonight, was Sarah saying, "I don't love you and I don't want you here." And he just looks at her and shrugs his shoulders and walks away. Like I said, like a little kicked puppy. So I believe that it's entirely possible that, I mean, I'll show you other videos too that kind of drive home the point that it's entirely possible that she made him get in there. I mean, if he wasn't unconscious, she might have just commanded him to do it. That's the kind of relationship that they had.
Well, in the testimony, she tripped up big time because because the simple question that probably hasn't been asked, but that's been on a few people's minds is like, so he tapped you and said, "You're it." Then he went upstairs and hid in the shower, or you went upstairs and hid in the shower, and then he hid in the suitcase. So were you playing tag or were you playing hide and seek? Because if you were playing hide and seek, you can't both hide. Like somebody has to be it.
This is how
So
you can tell he has 30 years of experience as a detective, folks. He just
right.
he just he
This-
just completely he completely just offered a whole report there on how that doesn't make sense.
the game
Just
she was playing is called Hide and Hide.
he just Watergate commissioned this entire thing. We just got a Warren Commission report on this whole hide and hide thing. How it just doesn't, as it turns out, the whole hide and go seek thing doesn't make sense. You're right. But the other thing is too, is that something that she is a constant refrain for, and I think it's interesting. But she always talks about how she wants to go to bed. Is there any goddamn reason she just can't go to bed? And I'm going to show you a video tonight of how she's complaining that she went to bed at 8 and she's awakened because George has been drinking and he's maybe made some noise or something. She comes out and berates him. And she tells him that he is not allowed to come in the bedroom and he has to leave. And he goes downstairs and goes to sleep. So is there any reason why she can't go to sleep? No, she doesn't have a leg to stand on, of course. Did you happen to see this trial footage though that I'm showing right now?
No, I'll be watching it for the first time. You'll get my
All right. Well, I'll get your live reactions. We'll go back to it. But so
I mean, like I would get an odd alert every once in a while that just had the word suitcase in exclamation points, or no, it would say body cam and exclamation points.
I
Then
know.
would say,
I got so
911 call.
I got so excited throughout the day. It was because when they went to 911 calls, I was just like, well, this is our territory. So the jury's been excused here, and they're continuing to argue. And I'll be reminded of where we're at, and I'll bring us up to speed again.
With regard to the proffered opinions, the court will oversee a deposition now, and you may proceed.
Right now?
Yes. With regard to the proffered opinions.
He's not waiting anymore.
The way that she described the incident to me.
Was that your opinion back when I took your deposition?
Yes,
When did you form that opinion?
when she described the incident to me.
What she's saying right now is, I knew that it was never battered spouse syndrome, and I knew that it was never PTSD that caused her to do this. This lawyer, being underprepared because he's late to the game, thought that this psychiatrist on the stand was going to back him up during the deposition. He went through a whole deposition. He thought he was straight with her, thought this person was going to back him up, and she gets on the stand and says, yeah, but none of it really matters. That essentially pulls out the bottom card on the house of cards that was the defense. And he's completely incensed by this. He's like, when did you change your mind? You're lying, during the deposition, that's not what you said. And she's going to go back and forth with him pretty good about how, well, you didn't ask me that specific question, whether or not I agreed with you. I just said I would answer whatever questions you asked. And it makes him, I'm sure that James Owens is a good lawyer, but it makes him look pretty bad.
Why didn't you let us know that was your opinion at the time that I took your deposition?
You didn't ask me about that, sir.
Do you remember me asking you any other opinions that you may have as it relates to this case?
You didn't ask me specifically about that.
I understand that, but you're saying you formed that opinion prior to the deposition, correct?
Yes. The state attorney and I discussed that on the way out of the jail, as a matter of fact.
After the deposition?
No, sir. After the evaluation.
Okay.
On the way out of the jail.
All right, and I asked you, were there any other opinions that you may express at trial after you had discussed that with the state attorney prior to the deposition? Is that correct?
Yes.
And so you were aware that I didn't want to be ambushed at trial. I wanted.
Oof. Is that me? Did you freeze or did I freeze or what's going on? Are you?
To know any and all opinions that you may be expressing in the Sarah Boone case.
I didn't know what specific information you wanted, sir. That's why you had a deposition. I answered your questions. I don't know what all information you want me to provide to you.
So because I didn't ask you specifics, you felt like you didn't have to respond specifically?
No, sir, I answered all of your questions. And as I said, I'm happy to answer any questions that I'm asked. I don't know what questions you want me to answer.
But you know that this was a central issue in the case. Did you not? Your opinion
Yes.
is relating to a central issue in this case.
Correct?
You're aware Sarah Boone's on trial for murder.
That's correct.
And you had this opinion when I was taking your deposition, and I was asking you specifics about any opinions that you may be expressing in the trial of Sarah Boone, and you did not disclose it.
Well, I told you that I would answer any questions that were asked of me. I have a number of opinions. I know that I don't feel that she's suffering from major depressive disorder. I didn't offer that opinion either. I have a number of opinions.
That's all the questions I have.
This is your opportunity.
Yeah, I also think she's got a stupid haircut, but I didn't say that too. It's not my fault. You didn't ask me if the battered woman syndrome is the main reason why she would have felt fear that night and didn't let George out of the suitcase. See, the thing is he got his hopes up. He thought that, hey, I've got my own expert that agrees with me. The state's psychiatric expert agrees with me that she's got battered spouse syndrome. This is a home run. And he took a mental shortcut and didn't ask the most important question. Doctor, in your opinion, do you believe that her having battered spouse syndrome significantly impacted her decision-making process that night and her decision to let George out of the suitcase? Because she would have said no, because they had a great time that night. I interviewed Sarah myself. I spoke to her for 2 hours. She said they were having a good time. So from based off of your client's own words, I had no reason to believe that she felt she was in any kind of danger at all. Drew, any takes on this at all?
Yeah, it's all of this was kind of obliterated when Sarah took the stand. But, again, spoiler alert. But what they're asserting is that she's there was no overt act. So in other words, I think the term I coined in that one video was like, I'm not buying this Jack in the Box defense. What they're essentially saying is that she's like, oh man, I screwed up. I've been beat like a dog. And look, I want to separate that part of it. She was abused. There's no question.
We don't have doubts about that. No.
Yeah, she was a domestic violence victim. However, she contributed. I'm not blaming her or anything like that, but it was a very complicated relationship anyway.
Wait till you see the video later. You might start blaming her more.
No, I get it. I know that she's but anyway, she so what they're saying is that she's this battered spouse. What the judge and the state and the law say is, if you're going to assert this battered spouse or you're as a self-defense, then there has to be some kind of overt act that you're defending yourself against. It's not just like oh yeah, it was an accumulation and today was the day I decided to get back. I mean, nothing happened that night. And as a matter of fact, he was confined to a suitcase. So she could have, in essence, picked up the phone and dialed 911. And what we said in the beginning of this, John, and what we've been saying all along is what all of the legal experts are now saying. I'm not saying that we prognosticated it. I mean, I'm sure it was easy for them to pick off too, but it would have been a smarter play to say, yeah, I was shit hammered. I went upstairs and I went to bed. I am so sorry. I screwed up. I did a really, really, really bad thing. I feel horrible about it. Like, that's feasible.
Might have been better to throw herself on the mercy of the court, but that's not her psychology at all.
No,
they gave her a plea bargain in which she would have ended up only serving after time served and with good time. Florida has a law that you can actually earn good time while you're inside the state penitentiary. You still have to serve 85% of your sentence, no matter how much good time you collect. But she could be out in a very, very reasonable amount of time, especially considering that she's
4 years. She's already done 4 years.
She's getting close to 5 years. So but for her now, it's at this point, and we heard her say this during all the shenanigans when she was representing herself, that she wants to go out there, and she was mentioning this at like a evidence suppression hearing, that she wants to go out and show the jury and show the world and show the media what a good person she is, and how she just wants to see this adventure all the way through. And she even called this an adventure. For her, it's not only about not getting to an acquittal. It's not about someone saying in the news that Sarah is not guilty. She wants someone to say she's innocent. She wants the persecution complex or the persecution conspiracy to be called to account, saying that I was never in the wrong, and that all this mess that I've had to gone through is all as a result of incompetence or a grudge being held by the state of Florida. That's what she's ultimately looking for. And because the die is already cast, right? She already said no to the plea. Her chips are all in. If I could just employ every gambling strategy possible, and I think it's going to not work out very well for her, particularly after today.
Well, we're just going to spin that roulette wheel and let the ball land where it does, because if we spin the slots, we don't know if it's going to come up aces. But the thing is, John, she's I think we now know why this is lawyer number 9. I think this is very, very clear why this is lawyer number 9. Like, now, the other explosive thing that came of this, I don't know if you got to watch it, but yesterday a motion was filed at the end of the day. It was after all the proceedings that they're doing this pro bono, the two attorneys. And I want to tell you, those guys aren't bad attorneys. Like, they seem to be doing some decent lawyering.
I had heard him say that there was an arrangement for payment at some point.
No, see, here's the problem. The only one that's not doing things pro bono is the private investigator, and it's very expensive and all this other stuff. And so what they negotiated with her was that we will pay your private investigator if you give us the rights to the book deal
Oh man.
or some kind of movie deal or the rights to the story, I guess. So so the state filed a motion and said, look, this is a direct conflict of interest. Like, I think it's just unethical to begin with. I'm sure it happens all the time, but it's probably going to happen after the trial, I would think. There might be a wink and a nod or something in the attorney's office before, and then after, however the outcome is. There's rumor that that's what happened with Casey Anthony and stuff like that. Like, which by the way was in Orange County also. So don't be shocked by this jury. Like, they've shocked us before. They've got us before. But but the judge was very different in that case. But yeah, that was what the state was saying, and then that's why I wasn't surprised when you sent me early this morning. Like, he's basically saying that the state is unethical or whatever. Like, it's just fireworks back and forth. I didn't get to see what happened this morning.
You're about to see it. I'm going to get back to it so you can see everything. It just rises to a fever pitch. We're going to keep going.
Opportunity, Mr. Owens.
Because that was more just about...
Inquire about what?
This is your opportunity to inquire. You are conducting a deposition. This is your opportunity and your only opportunity to
You are a lawyer right now.
cure any prejudice that we've identified with regard to those proffered opinions as it relates to the relationship of battered spouse syndrome and or post-traumatic stress disorder.
Now, I'm taking a deposition on the fly, and then I haven't had a chance to speak with my expert about those opinions and whether or not that would change her opinion.
Basically, what he's talking about is that so the experts get to hear each other's testimony, and so the experts obviously are in the same field, and they get to hear what the other person has to say, and there's probably a little bit of commingling there of ideas so that they can say, well, I need to say this to make sure this point gets across and otherwise. But now, the defense is not calling their expert to the testimony, I guess, to rebut this. I don't know if that's a possibility at this point, but.
Well, I could see also where he's saying, look, I mean, she killed any thought that we've been putting on this defense this whole time. If I'd have known she was going to do that, we would not have used this as a defense. It would have affected my ability to talk, to basically lay out a better picture for her to take the plea deal or for us to go in a different direction for a defense. Like, I can see maybe where that is, but I also see this, like in the preliminary hearing and right before they started on day one, which I think was last Friday. We've been trying to narrow that down, but I think it was last Friday. But the state and the judge both have been saying, like, this battered spouse stuff you're presenting it's not going to fly. It's not what the Supreme Court says. It's not what the Florida case law says. It's not going to fly. And he was fighting tooth and nail to get this in here. And they were basically telling him, you're making a mistake here. Like, I don't know that they were saying that, but it was just, you could just tell by the tone of the argument. It was like, look, man, I know what you're trying to do, but that's not how it applies here. And you're misdiagnosing this. So now it almost makes a little more sense because he probably thought that she was going to testify one way. The state already knew what she was going to testify to. The state was probably like, this guy's fucking crazy for calling her up there. I know what she's going to say, unless she impeaches herself. So it does kind of shed a little bit of light on what's been going on here.
Case in point, though, he came late to the game. She was denied right to her own. The judge said, you've basically forfeited your right to your own counsel, which is insane because how do you forfeit your own constitutional right? Like, she pushed it so far where he's just like taking a pen and drawing a line through the Constitution for Sarah Boone. Because it's that bad. They can't even get to the state's rights to due process at a speedy trial because of how much she's belaboring the process. So she's got to represent herself. This guy, James Owen, says, you know what, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I just went to the state attorney just to see what he was feeling. I said, hey, do you even feel like making a plea bargain? Like, could we even talk about it? And so Sarah liked him. And so he jumped in there as her attorney. And he's the first thing he says is like, Judge, I'm going to need a continuance. I just got here. And this judge is so fed up to the point where he had already said she doesn't even deserve a lawyer, which can you imagine this without him? He's doing a great job of at least making this an official proceeding. Although I admit I wanted to see this without a lawyer because it would have been great.
Yeah.
It would have been popcorn.
It would have been
But
day one, though. It would have been over in day one.
it would have been, yeah, we'd already had the verdict by now. So the continuance was denied. The judge says, like, you knew what you were getting into. You knew that this has been delayed. You knew that we had already set trial date, that it's been moved several times. If you're not ready to roll on this and you do not want to do it, bow out, sir. You have no obligation. Get out
while you can, basically.
He's not being appointed by the court. He is there because he wants to be there. So he doesn't have that same leverage. If he was being appointed to be there, if he had no choice, if the unified judicial system says you have to be here, you have to essentially be a public defender, he would have a lot more latitude and leverage in order to help defend this case. But because he's there because he wants to be, they're just not giving him any of that whatsoever. And this is a great example of that. As far as the battered spouse syndrome thing, it's a defense. Like with the Menendez brothers, like they had to have something. And I think he probably ran a few options past her. And this one, because they have photos of Sarah in the emergency room where she has obviously sustained injuries, she thought, well, this will play well with the jury. They're going to at least see me as a victim. And they thought it would go pretty well. But the prosecutors, as we'll get to later, have unraveled that as well. Joe, I'll keep going if you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
Now in open court, and I will oversee the deposition for you, Mr. Owens, to inquire as to those opinions.
I'm sorry.
With regard to the proffered opinions, the court will oversee a deposition now, and you may proceed.
Right now?
Yes. With regard to the proffered opinions.
Regarding PTSD and battered
The
spouse.
way that she described the incident to me.
Was that your opinion back when I took your deposition?
Yes.
When did you form that opinion?
When she and I answered your questions, I don't know what all information.
That would change her opinion. It just puts me in a very difficult situation, but if I'm ordered to continue the deposition, I will.
That's your decision. It's not an order. I'm just saying that this is the opportunity to cure that Richardson issue. You asked previously to strike the expert. I am disinclined to do that.
He had asked earlier in the day that this witness be stricken from the record. He wanted her completely thrown out. That's how devastating she was to the case. He's just like, well, shit, she completely blew up the defense. We have got to have her thrown out of here. And the judge has to tell the jury, forget you saw her. Forget you even heard anything that she said. So he asked the judge to throw her out. The judge is like, I'm only supposed to do that if there's no other remedy. The other remedy that I could do instead is that you can depose her right now. So go ahead. And he's just like, right now? Right this instant? He goes, yeah, lawyer it up. You're now in deposition mode and go.
Right. But then he just now kind of was like, look, if you're ordering me to do this now, and the judge who I thought was fair throughout this whole thing. I mean, I kind of like this judge, to be honest. But
he's great.
He was like, I'm not ordering you to do anything. There's a requirement that or an allowance for you to do a deposition, and I'm giving you space to do it. I'm not ordering you to do anything.
And
it
here we go.
satisfies what we need to do.
The deposition is about to blow up in his face too. Go ahead.
I do see a question in here. I'm not sure what photographs you're talking about. Usually photographs are taken at the scene, but there are times when they're not taken at the scene. I mean, like if they're at the hospital or if they're
photographs, yeah, they're clearly in a medical environment. If you want to, you can watch the footage from Court TV or elsewhere. But in the last hour and a half of the day, they open up a lot of media files that have photos of both Sarah and George with significant injuries from the repeated run-ins. I'll show you footage tonight of 911 phone calls and footage of police body cam of all the occasions where the police are coming out to their house. And guess what? Every single time Sarah dials 911, She says she lives on France Court. The dispatcher cannot understand what street she lives on.
So FRANCE, right?
FRANT is a Tom, Z is in zebra, but there's like France Lane or something somewhere
No,
else.
I know.
So
I know very like we covered that in the episode that we did. But by the way, one of the forensic, I think it was the digital forensic expert, got on the stand and made the same mistake about the address. She's like, I think that's what you call it.
this lawyer's getting so upset he's about to refer to her as Sarah Broom. So listen for it.
Case law says that is an extraordinary remedy, one which I am not going to permit.
Dr. Warren, you realize you're in a courtroom,
Yes, sir.
and we're waiting on the jury on the trial of Sarah Boone.
Yes.
Are there any other opinions that you intend to express in this trial that you have not disclosed to me in the deposition, or you have not disclosed here today?
Are you going to
Under
make it
oath.
worse?
I'm happy to answer any questions that I'm asked.
Are you refusing to answer my question about any other opinions that you intend to express here today as it relates to Sarah Boone, who was on trial for murder in the second degree?
Judge, I'm going to object. The catch-all vague question that Mr. Owens
State doesn't like the fact that they're asking an expert a vague question. You're like, what else do you think? Do you think anything else? It's like, it's not what you would ask an expert.
wants to ask this expert witness about any and all opinions she may or may not have. 99 out of 100 attorneys would come in here and say that's not how you do depositions with expert witnesses. You have to ask specific questions. Anytime you ask a question like that of an expert, the expert's always going to say, please ask me a specific question. And that's what she did then. That's what she's doing now. It's unfair and vague to ask somebody, tell me every opinion you have.
Judge,
Yes, sir.
we're in the middle of a trial. She's fixing to testify. She's had conversations with the
She's fixing to testify. She's blowing everything up.
state attorney. She knows what she's going to be asked in forms of opinions that she's going to express. That's why she's here, to help the jury understand the science that relates to the law and express opinions. I mean, for me to ask, we're playing hide the ball here? In the middle of a trial,
I disagree that there's any hiding of the ball.
are there any other person?
So he again, hiding of the ball. This is just another way of saying he's ambushed. The judge goes on here for quite a while saying, you have not been ambushed. There's no hiding of the ball. You're being given the remedy. The problem is just that there's no solution because she's already testified in front of the jury that Sarah has no diagnosis that will get her off of this charge. She doesn't have one. And so he realizes that, but what can he do at this point? He can't get her to admit that she has anything else. And so he's going to have to start attacking her credibility. So for the rest of the deposition, he's just going to, at one point, this is how you can tell how unprepared he is. He doesn't, I didn't have this in the video, but you'll take my word for it. At one point he goes, so do you do this a lot? Do you do forensic examinations a lot? And, or what kind of job do you have? She goes, I treat patients with Sarah's symptoms 7 days a week. And he goes like, you work 7 days a week? And she goes, yes, I'm very tired. And he goes just like, well, and then he doesn't really have anything to say about that, but he had no idea like what position she was. And then he's like, well, how long have you been doing this? You haven't been doing it very long. And she goes, I've been doing this since 1998. Oh, so there's no impeaching her credibility. She's definitely an expert.
Personality disorders that you have formed opinions about Sarah Boone that you intend to express?
No.
I believe we've covered anxiety disorder, narcissism, battered spouse syndrome, and alcohol use disorder. Are there any other opinions that you intend to express as it relates to
There's
that
no
or
to
any
all of
other
those.
psychological condition of Sarah Boone?
No.
That's all the questions I have.
Based on your evaluation of Ms. Boone and what she relayed to you about the facts of the case, does PTSD or BSS have any relation?
Objection, that's an asked and answered.
Overruled.
No.
See, the state's attorney says, so based on everything, it's not battered woman syndrome, right? And the defense attorney is just like, we already asked that. Let's move on. He doesn't want it said it again one more time because the jury's back in the room now, and they're going to hear her say again battered woman syndrome and PTSD and any of those other syndromes she just listed, not one of them has any bearing on her state of mind as she refused to unzip the suitcase.
And what particular part of her statements about the incident is that?
The whole part where she's describing the part about playing hide and seek and that they were having a good time, they were laughing, when he got in the suitcase, when she found him, they were.
In other words, the lie about how he got into the suitcase, because she lied and said that they were having a fun evening, because she initially tried to lie and say it was just a horrible game of hide and seek gone horribly wrong. Based on that initial lie to 911, when 911 answered the phone and she said, we were playing hide and go seek and I zipped up my boyfriend, that was when Sarah Boone sealed her own fate, because now we have a psychiatrist on the stand saying, because of this, we know that she was not feeling afraid.
Were enjoying themselves. She zipped them up. They were still laughing, having a good time. All of that isn't consistent with her having a feeling of she had imminent risk or there was an imminent risk of harm that she needed to protect herself.
That invades the province of the jury.
Here we go. Now, because she said that to the jury, he's saying that invades the province of the jury. The argument he's about to make, and I clipped this down as much as possible, is that he is contending that an expert witness is just going to understand to say, this defense is invalid. He's saying it should be up to the jury to say this defense is invalid, and they're going to argue the point here.
That's a decision whether or not she had imminent risk of harm or perceived an imminent threat is a question for the jury. This expert can express opinions on science, on medicine, but not on the ultimate issue of fact, and explain to the jury that this defense doesn't qualify.
That's the
Doesn't
point.
apply. This is no different than one expert coming in and saying, well, yeah, you can know that the defendant was sane at the time despite his mental illness because he ran from the police, he hid, he concealed evidence, so on and so forth. It's not becoming a lawyer, it's not becoming the juror, it is explaining a particular type of expert testimony.
It's totally wrong.
It's answering a question.
The prosecutor claims Dr. Harper came in and said BSS does apply. That's true. But he just got through saying and trying to get the witness to say BSS, it's not to be regarded. Post-traumatic stress is not to be regarded. It doesn't even come into play, post-traumatic stress disorder. Battered spouse syndrome does not even come into play because at the time she was facing, according to this witness, no imminent risk of harm. Therefore, you can discount everything you hear, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, about battered spouse syndrome.
How does that have anything to do with whether or not it's an improper legal opinion under 90.703?
It is. It's the ultimate issue of fact in this case because self-defense has been alleged by the defense. And the issue for this jury is whether or not Sarah Boone had the right to defend herself with force, deadly force or non-deadly force, based on her beliefs and impressions at the time, whether they were reasonable. This expert is trying to say that she was not facing imminent risk of harm at the time.
Thank you both for your arguments. Court is going to overrule your objection, find that it is not an ultimate issue of fact. A psychologist testifies in the instant case in Dinkins, the psychologist's opinions were not legal conclusions. The psychologist did not opine on the defendant's guilt or innocence.
But my question to you specifically is there anything in the text messages that stuck out to you?
So jury's back now, and she's still on the stand, and he's still stuck with her. So he's gone back and forth with her for a while now, saying you only got to talk to her for 2 hours. You said at one point you said that if you got to talk to her more, like your opinion might change, but you never followed up with her. You didn't even try. At one point, the psychiatrist says on the stand, that she had some prior diagnosis of some behavioral disorder or something, anxiety disorder or something. This attorney says, well, did you even attempt to confirm that? And she's just like, she just made the claim. Why would I proactively attempt to confirm that? Like, why would I try to see if she's lying? I'm evaluating her myself. And Sarah went through all kinds of diagnostics, psychological diagnostics, to see if she was feigning things. They have ways of doing that. And he's just grasping at straws now to say that she didn't even try to do a full interview, that she was worried about some other case that she was working on. She didn't do a full examination of it. And this lady has put up with a lot today.
I think, I
Go ahead.
think kind of the way you can frame this is like, if I go into a doctor and say, Doc, my arm is broken, and he doesn't take an X-ray, the attorney is arguing, you mean to tell me you didn't even X-ray? The guy told you his arm was broken, but the doctor's like, yeah, he can move his fingers. There was no swelling. In my medical experience, he doesn't have a broken arm. He has, a sprain or whatever. She's doing the same thing. Like, Sarah's coming in basically saying my brain is broken, and she's got no obligation other than to make her own diagnosis based on whatever she is evaluating her for. Like, you don't have to, just because somebody says they have something doesn't mean that they have it. And you can use other context to determine whether they have it or not. Like, oh, okay, well, we are leading down a path here of some type of post-traumatic stress or whatever. I think the main issue the day before was the experts were saying that battered spouse is not in the DSM. What's in the DSM is post-traumatic stress, and it's most related to battered spouse. So, I think that's part of it. Like, if Sarah's just like, well, I have battered spouse, this psychologist or psychiatrist is not going to say, well, let me run you through the battered spouse X-ray machine, and it doesn't work that way. She's just going to evaluate her how she would evaluate her, and she would say, yeah, she's got this disorder. She's lying to herself, and she's lying to me right now. And all right, go ahead.
The other thing is that talking to a counselor about your feelings and your problems, you could get a diagnosis that way, but it's not the same thing as a forensic examination from a forensic psychiatrist. Those are two different batteries of discussion.
You to pause and feel like that may have some impact on your evaluations.
Correct.
And you agree your answer is no.
As I said, it made me aware. That's not my complete answer.
Okay, well, let's
I can
talk.
read my
First,
complete
you said
answer.
no.
As I said, it made me aware that they had a
Ma'am,
volatile
ma'am.
It's not my complete answer.
I know, Dr. Warner, but didn't you say no to me? That was your first sentence, was no.
It's not my complete answer.
I understand. I'm going to let you answer that. But when I asked you if there was anything in the text messages that caused you to pause and it would in some way affect the impact on your evaluation, your answer to me was no.
It's not my complete answer.
I understand. But was your answer not to me no?
Yes, but that is not
All
my
right.
complete
Now,
answer.
at the same time, Dr. Warner, at the same time you expressed that they had a volatile relationship.
That is not the totality of my answer either.
Okay, and I'm going to get to it.
Okay.
But part of your answer was that they had a volatile relationship,
Correct?
and this is a relationship.
Drew, I just got to be thinking that the way that he's treating her, the way that she's just like, I mean, you could tell she's a little miffed about it or whatever, but this guy's got to be looking like a total jerk to the jury. Do you think like any of those like, less legally durable things are coming into play at all right now, where he's just looking like a bully or he's looking desperate? Do you think any of those things might be affecting the way the jury
I think
sees
they're
him?
probably. I think that they were probably already swaying towards this is a bunch of BS. She's crazy, and now this just kind of confirms it. But he's basically mad because she's holding the attention of the jury. I think the jury is probably that's why she was staring at the jury and nodding, and they're all staring at her, and that's why he keeps saying, doctor, like, look at me.
He's trying to get her to look at him. Yeah.
And which is fair, but I mean, at the same time, like, I think that's also a sign. You're just like you're saying. I think that's a sign of desperation. Like I've lost him.
He also keeps standing up throughout the day, which I don't know if you've ever had that feeling where you're not content to sit because you have so much energy, where you're so mad or you're so worked up that you just stand. It's like when you're on the phone and you walk around, you're pacing. It's that same feeling where you're just uncomfortable.
To my question about the text messages, you agree?
Yes.
After you said no, you said they had a volatile relationship and that she text messaged calling him an idiot, a fucking idiot, for overdrafting her account.
Correct.
And in those text messages, there was some reference to domestic violence between the two.
Correct.
And that demonstrated to you that they had a violent relationship.
Correct.
And do you not agree that that evidence of a volatile relationship had an effect on you expressing your opinion here today that Sarah Boone suffered from battered spouse syndrome?
Judge, we need to object. We need to approach.
And the jury gets sent out on that one.
That was our understanding. I've been ambushed by a new opinion that I was not made aware of by any kind of report. I was not notified by Dr. Warner. I was not notified by the state attorney, William J. I first heard about the opinion when she testified to it, and I objected to it, relating to imminent.
I objected to her opinion. That's what he just said. I objected to her opinion.
Threat, the ultimate issue of fact. I move for a total dismissal for prosecutorial misconduct.
Denied.
Oh my
Oh, he
Oof.
he had that completely ready to go. Denied.
That was a laser from.
He-
I'm surprised we just don't see a set of smoking shoes.
Did you see him sit down too? Just an utter defeat.
Because he's frustrated, and I get it, but he's like, yeah, that's
Well, the whole,
prosecutorial
like,
misconduct.
He's like, I move for dismissal. It's the prosecution version of this is like, I move for summary judgment. Like, I've obviously proved my
Right.
case. Like, he has nothing else. Like, he has nothing else in the chamber. The judge says denied. And then he says this.
And here's the other reason it's denied.
He didn't even say one reason yet, but that's how mad he is. He said denied
Because
I
he's
said
thinking,
so,
well, that's
because I
bullshit.
said so.
Denied.
And here's the other reasons. He is ready. Watch him lambaste him.
Page 38 of the deposition.
Just like he said the other day, Dr. Harper, if you get those additional medical records, Mr. Owens, about George Torres and give them to Dr. Harper, then I'm going to want to take her deposition again. The same rules apply. Why would I take her deposition when she hasn't finished?
Because the court ordered you to take her deposition.
Oh, he's like, why would I take the deposition again when it made everything even worse? He's like, because I told you to do it.
Because there were concerns about being able to have all of this done prior to trial. And you had concerns about what she was going to testify to. And the court set a scheduling order as to when, how, where, and the deadlines for those depositions to be conducted.
That prosecutor should have let me know if he was going to ambush me at trial. I should have known beforehand about a new opinion
I should have been told that I was going to be defeated. You should have
Right.
told me.
that Dr. Warner was going to express, especially related to battered spouse, post-traumatic stress, and whether or not there was an imminent threat at the time of this event.
And the court's addressed that. Is there anything else, sir, we need to address?
May I supplement the record?
Yes.
This is where the state's attorney finally he's like, I haven't done a damn thing all day. But this guy just said that I've had prosecutorial misconduct,
Misconduct,
that
yeah.
I've been bushwhacking people. And the judge obviously didn't even entertain. He's just like denied. But he's got to throw his 2 cents in here. He's and I think quite rightly so that he should take some umbrage and voice that. You got to remember James Owens here is not someone who normally argues trials on this circuit. He came in from elsewhere to get
Yeah.
into the Sarah Boone case. So he and this prosecutor do not normally make pleas together. They do not go golfing together. They are not friends. And the whole prosecutorial thing and accusing him of ambushing him, these are not punches being pulled in the collegial environment.
I understand very well what my ethical duties are. I do not have any ethical duty to provide him an unrecorded statement that is not inconsistent with prior testimony. This doctor did not give me any unrecorded statements inconsistent with her testimony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, he tried to make the case that the state's attorney talked to her either in phone or in person, and then they came up with this like, well, she's got this, but it doesn't matter. They thought that there was some sort of tampering there or something.
Right.
And what he's relying on is, let's go back to the deposition, page 38. That's what the judge says. You never asked her any specific question about whether or not the battered spouse syndrome that she has had anything to do with her state of mind. Because you cut that corner, you got caught with your pants down.
So there was rule of completeness, but for him to say that that's not standard operating procedure when you're taking a deposition of an expert.
Mr. Owens, I've ruled, sir. I understand. I understand your position.
I understand. You are fucked and embarrassed.
However, the questions that were specifically asked, which gave rise to this, specifically pertain to opinions of PTSD. I'm not going to rehash any and all of those things. The record speaks for itself. The court has ruled. Your motion for dismissal of the charges is denied. With that, are we ready to bring back in our panel?
No, sir.
No, we're still not ready to bring in the jury. He is pissed off this judge. The judge says, I'm done messing around. Let's get the jury back in. And we're wasting the jury's time.
Okay.
Judge, I've got Earhart's Florida Evidence 2023 edition, volume
He's ready.
1, Charles W. Earhart.
I've already, let me tell you how you're going to rule on this, sir. I'm going to allow you, as I said up here at sidebar, to go into the facts that she relied upon and what it is that she utilized. I'm going to allow you, sir, as I said up here at the bench before the lunch hour, to go into those opinions that she didn't offer here today. You can't use her as a conduit to admissible evidence on direct examination. And that if you want to do it, you got to do it now. And your argument was it goes to her bias, it goes to her credibility, and that you're permitted wide discretion on cross-examination. I agree with you. I agreed with you before the lunch hour. My ruling hasn't changed.
Judge, and I'm referring to Earhart's treatise. However, if the witness expresses an opinion about the intent of the accused, which Dr.
See, he's standing up again. There's no reason for him to be standing.
Warner did, the opinion has not been permitted. The distinction drawn by the courts as to when this type of opinion testimony is admissible are often not clear. This expert testimony regarding substantive legal principles may not be helpful to the jury and may create confusion if an expert testifies in a manner that is different or even in conflict with the testimony of an opposing expert.
But the citations, respectfully, Counselor.
Judge, if I could finish.
Respectfully, Counselor, the citations that you're referring to are not at issue. Fluellen, 644 Southern 2nd, 1376, for Gamble, and Fluellen, 703 Southern 2nd, 511. The Dinkin case that I read says this is acceptable. If a psychologist or psychiatrist can testify that someone is not mentally defective or was mentally defective, that's on all fours with, based on what the defendant had said to this expert, she was not in imminent fear. That opinion is not inadmissible per the case law under Dinkins.
Judge, can I read a little bit more?
If you're just going to be reading from the treatise, I've already read it.
Okay, well, I just want to make mention, because it's talking about does not prevent a witness to testify about legal conclusions or express opinions on questions of substantive law. That invades the province and function of the trial judge to determine the applicable law.
Oh, he just said that because of what this witness said today, he says it invades the province of the judge.
You're right.
He's going after the judge now.
And to instruct the jury otherwise, which we haven't even done yet.
Your objection's been made for the record, and the court previously ruled on this matter. I appreciate the additional argument, but the court's reliance on Dinkins remains.
911.
So that's it for the court stuff today. That's where the fireworks ended. He finally realized that he may have been beat. You saw him when he says, "I move for immediate dismissal." A judge says denied it. The way he sat down, completely slack. I'm not a body posture expert. I'm not even going to pretend. I'm just a human being.
Yeah,
I've seen people defeated, and boy, like I said, House of Cards came tumbling down today. Got a bomb dropped on it. What's next is a 911 phone call. But Drew, I want to hear anything you have to say on the trial so far.
No, I think he understood that if he said anything further, he was going to be switching seats with Sarah Boone.
He came dangerously close to some contemptuous situations today because he kept pushing the issue. I cut out quite a bit of the judge telling him, "I already ruled on this. I already decided. We already said it's not an issue of fact that she spoke on." But even if she had said that, which she didn't, the jury's going to be instructed to say, like, "Hey, you've heard experts on both sides. You're going to have to decide all the witnesses in the case, the neighbors who complained that they were lousy drunks. You're going to have to decide how credible they are. You're going to have to decide based on all the people who've testified, all of the evidence, everything we brought before you. Has the prosecutor met their burden of proof? There can be a shadow of doubt, but beyond all reasonable shadow of doubt, do you believe that she's guilty of murder for zipping up her boyfriend and refusing to unzip him and hitting him with a baseball bat and recording the whole thing? And more stuff came to light that we're about to get to that takes her videotaping him in the suitcase and puts it in a whole new context, Drew, because she did this to him all the time. He just wasn't always zipped up.
Oh, no.
So what I want to do is transition over to kind of our bread and butter. This is a longer 911 phone call, but this is a 911 phone call, and there's some cool things here that aren't just about Sarah Boone in this, but this is so emblematic of someone who's got problems that are not criminal issues necessarily, but they want the police to solve them for them. This is such a routine, daily, everyday 911 phone call, and I've got some rather traditional commentary to play on it.
Call publishing.
It's not technically an emergency. Just
At 911, when you answer 911 and someone says it's not an emergency, but you just take a shot. Just go ahead.
you guys have been there so many times before. I'm not there, but I'm just trying to go home.
What is the address?
4748 France Court.
What was the street name? Brant's Court?
France. F as in Frank, R-A-N-T-Z as in zebra.
Oh, is it France?
I don't know if it's there or not. I'm sorry?
Ma'am, is it France Lane?
I'm guessing so. It's France Court, but it always comes under France Lane.
Okay, what exactly is going on?
I would like to go home, but I can't go home because he's there.
Okay, do you have some sort of restraining order against him, or
He has a no contact.
is there an apartment number?
So he has a no contact order against her at this point. I believe that's what she said. Of course,
Yeah.
these no contact order things, Drew, these can be very nebulous. In fact, something that I cut out of this because the presentation is so long. There are so many 911 phone calls and so many police contacts where Sarah calls 911 because George is misbehaving. Police show up and they arrest him because he's in violation of a no contact order. In fact, there was one classic one today that got left on the cutting room floor because I was just too busy. But the police officers say, like, now you were told when you were served this paperwork that if you were in her presence, you would be picking up a new charge. You understand that, right? And he goes, yeah, I know. He goes, but, is that really the law? And they're like, yeah, the judge signed it. The judge is the law. And he's like, was the judge really the law? Because, like, Sarah says it's okay for me to be here. Like,
Well, all right. So hold on a second. Let's just back up just one quick second here.
go back to all the protection order stuff. It's
Yeah, because
irritating.
normally what happens when there is a domestic violence charge, the judge, if they're going to grant bond, will issue a no contact order, which is a judge's order. So it's not necessarily enforceable as a law per se, if that makes sense. It's a contempt of court issue. There is a difference between a no contact order and and some type of injunction where paperwork is actually served. If she invites him back into the apartment, she has violated the no contact order just as much as he has, and the courts aren't going to deal with it. They're not going to waste their time with it. The courts are going to say, I told you not to go back in there, unless this is like a 5 or 6 or 7 8th or 9th time or whatever.
They were hitting numbers that high, Drew.
Or 2 or 3 times. But I told you not to go back there. I don't care if she invited you or not. You can cool your heels off in the pokey until we come to a resolution on your domestic violence charge. So a judge can do that, but that's got to be brought forward by the state as a contempt of court issue.
Yeah.
That's different from violating an injunction, which would be her seeking an injunction or the courts ordering an injunction. The two of you need to stay away from each other. He can't be within 100 feet of or 500 feet of your apartment. He can't be within 500 feet of your employment. He can't use a third party to contact you. All these other things, though that may parallel or they may use the same language or the same admonishments or whatever you want to call them for a no contact order. The enforceable part for law enforcement is the injunction. And the injunction, it's part of civil process, has to be served. So if it's an unserved injunction and he
Right.
violates it, it's nothing.
It's
If
nothing.
he's-
Yeah, he hasn't been served. He admitted he had been served, and they had gotten.
Yeah,
proof
that's
it had been.
so that's a charge. That's not only a charge. If it's a repeated violation of the injunction, I think it's like 2 or more, that actually escalates into an aggravated stalking. You could actually escalate that into a stalking.
There was multiple arrests made on George that they showed videos of today. They had almost an hour of videos of body cam footage of them responding to the scene and arresting George on multiple occasions. And Sarah was usually drunk. She would call the police. She would say, "Please don't arrest him." And they're like, "Well, he's violating a no contact order, and you called us here, and have proof that we have probable cause to arrest him."
Yeah.
And she was usually drunk. She was begging police officers not to be arrested. They kept saying, like, "Did you commit a crime?" And she's like, "No." I'm like, "Well, why do you think you're going to get arrested?" And that's going to come up in the course of this phone call, very obviously. But she would throw herself on the officers, try to hug them. She behaved like a child. She had no dignity at all. She kept telling this one officer to like sit down. And he's just like, "I've been sitting down in my car all day. It feels good to stretch. Please stop asking me to sit down." Like, just sick of her shit, the way that she behaves all the time. And the thing is, she had to go through all these motions to like get her hair done and wear civilian clothes. She was denied makeup. But now these videos played of her today that just show her what a piece of trash she is. The language that she uses and the way that she's a bully, as you're about to see, just completely unravel any myth that Sarah Boone is a sweet, loving person. At one point, someone asks her on the stand, "Why didn't you leave George? When he was acting this way, why didn't you go?" And she would say, "When you love someone and you want the best for them and you want to invest in them and you want to see them as the best version that they are, you put up with a lot and you stick around and you try to get through things. You'll see video tonight that completely undoes all of that." And I was delighted for people to finally see the real Sarah Boone. I don't know how long the jury obviously hasn't been following it that long. Otherwise, they'd be disqualified from sitting there. We have been following Sarah Boone for months now, so
Yeah,
we're
already mad at her.
We were already mad. So this is especially delightful. So now here's what's going on is that she wants to go home. She's at her ex-husband's house. She wants to go to her house. She thinks George might be there, so she wants police to go and roust him. Drew.
3. 1 second.
I'm at my former husband's house right now because I can't go home. I don't even know if he's there or not. He was there earlier, but I can't go home.
So wait a second. We don't even know if he's there. She can't go home because he might be there. So she wants the police to go to her house and make sure he's not there, and if he's there, to make him leave. By the way, it's his legal residence too.
Okay, so do you want us to do a standby with you?
What do you mean?
Like escort you to the residence, or I'm not understanding what you would like.
If I could, please, can you guys?
She's almost shopping for police services.
Right, no,
What else
she's
is
like,
on the menu?
We're onto something here.
See if he's there. Pretty sure he left me out earlier, so I think he's probably there still. I'm not going over there with him there. I'm not.
Okay, does he live there?
I like how she says, "I'm not going over there with him there. I'm not." So she's saying, like, well, it's on you to get him out. Like, the ultimate pragmatic response would be like, "So don't go home." Like, why are you calling us?
Yeah,
No.
I think you're wise.
Okay, so how is he inside the residence then?
So good question here. So if he's in the residence, he's not supposed to be there, and you know for sure he is inside, or have reason to believe he is inside,
How did he get in there?
that would be a burglary.
Has a key that he took.
Well, not necessarily
is
if
he
he has
breaking
access
into
to
the
the house. I
apartment?
mean,
Well, the dispatcher doesn't know all the backstory.
but in theory too, they should know. There should be a CAD note that they often play hide and seek. So he could just
Oh,
be
right.
in there.
He could be
Ollie
hiding.
Oxenfree. Yeah, he could be hiding in the shower.
He's not breaking, he's already in the apartment. As far as I know, I don't know, like, if he's there or not. He knows where I hide my key.
By the way, it could still be a breaking and entering if you use a key. You're breaking it when you turn the key in the lock.
Okay, what we can do is we can meet you a block away from the residence and go with you to the residence.
That's not what I want you to do.
She's sounding like her own attorney.
Yeah.
I don't know. I tried calling him to ask him to leave if he's not already. So I have my 8-year-old that I'm trying to watch out for. So right now.
By the way, we know how loving she is to that 8-year-old. So
I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing. I just want to go home.
Okay, if you want to go home and you're not sure if he's there or not, we can meet you when you're about 5 minutes to a block away and go with you to make sure he's not there.
And that is a normal request. Like, let's get rid of everything else going on. If we've got a tense situation, we've got a property dispute, maybe a breakup's going on. Yeah, sheriff's deputies will go to a house and do a property standby, a civil standby if someone needs to go in and get their stuff, or if someone needs to leave, I guess, like if that needs to be mediated, like the rules get complicated depending on the totality of the circumstances, but that's pretty normal, right, Drew? I mean, you've probably done a lot of civil standbys.
Yep, definitely. And sometimes it's preemptive, so it's like just in the context that you just said it. It's usually to go pick up stuff. A lot of times it's, hey, I've my ex-husband's here, or my soon-to-be ex-husband, or whatever, my estranged husband's here. I have an injunction, and the injunction specifically lists the stuff he can get. So can somebody come here, serve him with the injunction, and just stand by while he gets his shit out?
Or he was just charged with domestic violence, and he's not allowed to have contact with me for that reason, but he wants to get his deodorant, you know?
Yeah.
That would be another reason that you would do that.
Okay, well, okay. I'm about to get, to be honest with you, kicked out of my apartment because you guys.
Oh, they're about to get kicked out because of all the times the police have been there. So that's the real reason why she doesn't want to be there. She wants, get ready for this request, Drew. Like I said, she keeps saying, you know, I don't know if I want to do that plan. I don't know if I want to do this plan. She doesn't have, so far she hasn't really offered solutions. The dispatcher's like, well, we could do this. This is a normal thing. Or we could do this. This is a normal thing. And this is what, just wait for this request though. This is how you could tell that she believes the police are truly there to protect and to serve.
Get called so often, and like the brigade comes and this, that, and everything, and like the neighbors complaining about everything, and just, I'm trying to avoid that. I just want to go home.
Okay, regardless, the deputies are going to go to the apartment, whether it's with you, what I'm suggesting you do, or it's what you want to do. Just have them go to the apartment. So regardless, people are going to see that there's deputies going to that address.
Okay, so when I called you guys like a couple of days ago, and they didn't make like, not a ruckus, but like they made it.
The police were making a ruckus the last time they were there. So the dispatcher has an excellent point. Whether we go with you or you're not there, people are going to see the police there. So you can't say that this is about you not wanting to get kicked out of your apartment because the police are there. You're still asking the police to go there. No one's going to be fooled. But of course, Sarah is still lying about what she needs and why. She's trying to manipulate the dispatcher to do something very, very specific. So she keeps coming up with all these reasons why these solutions, common sense, everyday stuff, are not going to work for her. Drew, have you figured it out yet?
No, I haven't really figured it out.
Oh, that's all right.
I don't know what's around the corner. But this right here is a classic, first of all, 911 call, but it's also a classic police call. Like, what exactly do you want me to do, adult? Like, what do you want me to do for you? you're in this dilemma because of you, not because of us or the public or anything else. And I get there is a level of protection or preemptive, like I want to protect you from if you think things are going to go violent and all that. But what exactly are you looking for if you're telling me this is not acceptable and this is not acceptable? What's left? There's nothing in the middle. Either we go there with you or we just show up. But this whole thing about the police being there is going to create a situation for you in your apartment complex has got nothing to do with the police. That's got
No.
everything to do with you in the apartment complex. And if need be, and the apartment complex needs some clarification, they can call, but there's no guarantee we're going to give the full answer anyway. Like, what do you want me to do?
I'll just tip you off now that it doesn't really have anything to do with getting kicked out of our apartment.
Okay.
Like incognito, which is what I need, because I'm going to get kicked out of my place.
You hear that? She wants the police to show up incognito, Drew.
Yeah, right.
She wants you to put on a disguise, a little fake mustache, and a trench coat.
I would totally have those glasses with the nose and the mustache.
Can
Full
you believe
uniform.
she asked that? She asked police to go incognito. She actually
Right.
used that phrase.
I'm trying to avoid that. I just want to go home.
Okay, regardless, the deputies are gonna go to the apartment, whether it's with you, what I'm suggesting you do, or it's what you wanna do, just have them go to the apartment. So regardless, people are gonna see that there's deputies going to that address.
John, do
Okay,
you,
so when I called you guys,
What?
do you get the impression that this is every conversation she's had with every attorney?
I get the impression this is the conversation she has with every attorney, every police officer. In fact, Drew,
George.
not to keep with George, not to keep interrupting, but every time a police officer is out with her, they arrive on the scene. They say, "Well, what's going on today, Sarah?" And she'll say something like, "Do you know what it means to be ragdolled?" And they'll be like, "I guess." And then she just cocks her eyebrows, and then he goes like, "I need you to elaborate and tell me exactly what happened."
I did hear that one.
Every police officer that talked to her says, "You need to elaborate and tell me what happened. Did you
Yeah,
start calling each
I
other
did hear that
names?"
one. Actually, what she said was, "Well, were you ragdolled?" Like, yes, I understand what ragdoll is. Were you ragdolled? And she never directly answers her. That,
Yeah,
by the way,
she's
was
vague all the time.
And if I'm not mistaken, that was a deputy sheriff that the defense called to the stand and testified that she showed up at a domestic at their house.
Point is that she's always vague all the time. She always wants someone else to tip their hand in any interaction, and she wants to play her cards close to the vest. She's
Yeah.
very, very, very manipulative. She has to control everyone all the
Yes.
time, and she's trying to control this 911 dispatcher right now.
like a couple of days ago, and they didn't make like not a ruckus, but like they made it like incognito, which is what I need, because I'm going to get kicked out of my place.
Okay, when we do a standby, ma'am, all we're gonna do is accompany you to the address and the deputy to make sure that he is not there, and then they will leave. If that's all that's going on in this situation right now that you're calling for, it's not gonna be like a big deal.
That's still not going to work for me.
And what happens when he is there?
If he is there and you don't want him there, you can have him trespass. They're gonna make sure he can leave. I mean, if he does not live there like you're saying, and he should not be in there, you can trespass him. You already have a no contact order with him. They will remove him.
Okay, well, there was an altercation earlier, and I'll be honest.
Oh,
Oh boy.
they're dropped. She said there was, I'll be honest with you, there was an altercation earlier today. So what does that tell you, Drew?
It tells me she knows the magic words anyway. Like, you know what I mean? It tells me that she's been lying about the whole interaction, that she's at her ex-husband's house because there was a fight earlier, which she probably was a willing participant in.
What does that mean, though?
Somebody's going to jail. Like she
And,
can make this
and it could be her, right? She doesn't want to be next to a
Yeah.
police officer when they find out that they have probable cause to arrest. They want the cops to go to her house, rouse George, arrest him, so she can go home, have her house back. But she doesn't want to be held accountable for anything that George says. If George shows bruises or signs and says, "Hey, Sarah ragdolled me," Sarah doesn't want to be within the long arm reach of the law. She wants the police to go without her because she doesn't want to get arrested, and she's about to say as much. It's shocking how much how hard she worked to get past that.
By the way, what if she said, "Look, I'm going to let you in the apartment. Just go roust him out of his little suitcase." He's like a dog in a kennel.
There was an altercation earlier. So that's when he came in, the altercation happened. So that's when I left. I fled. Barefoot.
Barefoot, feel sorry for me.
Now I'm at my former husband's house.
Okay, would you like the officers to meet you where you're at right now?
So did you see how hard she pushed back against that? This dispatcher's like, you need to make a domestic violence report. I will send a police officer right there to you, so you don't have to walk barefoot anywhere. Do you want the police to meet you wherever you are? Hot and the pizza and police officers delivered right to your door. What does Sarah say? Right away, faster than the judge said denied. Not gonna do that. Don't want police coming to me.
Yeah, cool your jets. Yeah, we're not at that stage yet.
I don't want to get arrested. I don't, because I fought for myself and I have my 8-year-old.
Now, Drew, I don't have I have more leverage than some people, but had I taken this call, and I didn't, I would have said, well, Sarah, why are you worried about being arrested? Did you commit a crime?
Well, not only that, you have your 8-year-old and you're at your ex-husband's house. Doesn't your ex-husband have your 8-year-old as well?
Yeah. So
like so let's get that worry out of the way.
She has one dog that's deaf and another that's blind, by the way. Did you know that? Because these are the only dogs that could put up with hers. They can't have a complete set of senses.
Right.
And I just want to go home and sleep in my own bed right now. But I did fight back. I'm not going to lie. So.
Okay, well, I mean, if you're wanting us to meet with you or go to your house, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. If they're either going to arrest anyone, arrest you, arrest him. That's all up to the deputy and what he concludes from the situation that's going on. So it's right now it's just up to what you want to do right now. If you want to do a standby, we'll accompany you to the residence. I mean, it's really just what you want to do.
I know. I think I have to take my time to school tomorrow. I just.
Or what I could do is I can have the deputy call you about the matter. If you want to speak to a deputy directly, and if you want to do that first before having us respond out there.
Yes, please.
Okay. What's your name?
Sarah.
By the way, the ultimate
Mara Chun. My name is Mara Chun.
The ultimate I can't fix this situation over the phone and I'm tired of trying is I'll have a deputy call you. That's the ultimate punt. We're so sick of it. We're like, we're just going to do our basic job. We're just going to communicate. We're just going to be messengers. We're not going to be problem solvers. 911 dispatchers are problem solvers.
Yeah.
This woman refuses to have her problem solved. This dispatcher has said, like, well, we could do one of 3 things that are easy and fun to help you. And all of them would have resulted in her being arrested. So we're not going to do that. So the dispatcher's like, tell you what, I'm just going to have somebody freaking call you. And we're hoping that the deputy, can kind of take on the manager role and kind of like be like, if you want help from us, you're going to have to level with us. Drew, you've been put in that position before, I'm sure, where the dispatcher just gives you a call and you have to kind of go full Papa Bear about it.
That's what our awesome, we call them administrative deputies now. Like they used to be called desk sergeants or whatever, but they're not sergeants. They're just desk deputies. But we have 5 districts where the desk is always manned 24/7 while there's patrol, going on. So that's exactly what the desk deputies for, to kind of like alleviate those, the stuff that could be handled over the phone. But eventually the desk deputy is going to be like, yeah, I'm tired of dealing with this bitch too. Somebody just go out there, because she probably needs to go to jail anyway. Because she's telling you that she committed a crime, and she just, that's why she doesn't want you there. But we're giving her the options of A, B, and C. The 911 dispatcher saying A, B, and C. The desk, let me tell you how this normally goes. The 911 operator dispatcher is saying A, B, or C. Sarah's like, no. They send they send her to a desk deputy. The desk deputy said, we could stretch this into an E if that's really what you want to do. And Sarah's like, nope, still looking for J or K.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we will send you a deputy sheriff. And then she will end up going to jail probably.
1 second, Sarah.
Thank you for your help. Actually, more ways than one.
Thanks for all your help in more ways than one. She's happy that she was able to manipulate this dispatcher into getting something other than A, B, and C.
And is a good phone number for you 407-716-8684?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to set up a call for a deputy to call you over the phone, so you can talk to them directly and see what they say about the situation. And when they call you, it'll be from a blocked or restricted number. So if you get a call like that, just make sure you answer. It's going to be the deputy, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. If anything changes or you decide you just want us to come out to give us a call back, okay?
Yes. What was your name?
My name's Rachel.
So she asked the dispatcher's name so that next time she can ask for Rachel.
Right.
Now, I'm not criticizing Rachel at all. Rachel did a great job, professional dispatcher. On my best day, I probably would have done it exactly like Rachel. Good job to Rachel.
Rachel, thank you so much for your help, and I've got the phone right here on my lap.
Okay, perfect. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Publishing the one video in the folder, starting with 19.
So this is the police have gone to the house. Sheriff's deputies, I believe. Sarah is there. She attempted to knock on the door while the police were kind of standing back. The door was locked. They made entry. The house was dark. And because police officers like it to be more dramatic, they did not turn on the lights. They searched the house with flashlights. I'm not even joking. They literally came in the house and instead of just flipping on a damn light, searched the house with
electricity
flashlights.
though?
Is this because, well, we'll find out. Is this because it's cooler to do it this way?
No, it's not cooler. There's got to be a reason. There's got to be a reason.
Okay.
Huh?
They've located George in a bedroom. And they have hooked him up with handcuffs.
That's what. And looks like they're trying to go back normal.
Hey guys, can I?
Before we're not doing anything right now. Alright, we're not even taking out a room. I'm gonna take you out of the bed right here.
Okay. Okay.
Alright. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What happened today? You got a light here?
Yeah.
You just gotta pull the thing?
Yeah.
What happened?
I don't even know what the heck happened.
There's a reason you're hiding in the bathroom, so don't act like we're not up here for no reason.
No, I know that.
Okay, so
I'm hiding in the bathroom because we had a discussion and as usual, and I am in the wrong.
Did you just hear what he said?
We had a discussion, and as usual, I'm in the wrong.
Yeah. He is not, contrast this to the case that we just handled the other day where we had Colin Turner talking about his dispute with his wife. I forget her name, Bree Kuhn. Bree Kuhn. Police roll up on scene. Colin Turner, more confident guy here, tells his side of it. He's a little even kind of aggressive in making sure that the police understand that he's the ultimate good guy. This guy right here, this is the first time on this show anyway that we're hearing from George Torres, and the police have shown up and handcuffed him. No resistance, no abuse, no saying, hey, you got it all wrong. He's just saying, as usual, I was in the wrong. I cut that short.
I think they both did that.
Go ahead.
When she described, so there was a body language expert that I did watch that talked about her testimony about being stabbed with a steak knife. And, they showed the injury and all that. And she was like, look, the way she described it, the way she's, described the sound and, she was rolling her eyes at certain questions and the way her rhythm was. And she was reliving that incident and she was being very truthful about it. But what Sarah testified to also was that George got down on his hands and knees and begged, please, if we have to go to the hospital, let's get a story straight before we go. Just please don't call the cops. Please, Sarah, please. So I think
she enjoys that power, doesn't she?
I think so, but I think that they also, I think that they also did that for each other for leverage. I think they also like, yeah. So she enjoys that power. He also enjoys the power too of saying, "Hey, look, you know, I'm a noble man. I'm the size of a jockey. I fit in a suitcase." But she didn't do anything wrong. It was all me. So, like now, the first phone call from the jail is, "Look, you bitch, I just took another charge for you. You know what I mean? Like you owe me." So, I think that there's some kind of power struggle there. I wonder if that's what the psychiatrist was going to testify to, or the psychologist. You're on mute.
Sorry, I don't go live a lot. I'm very curious to see if you still feel that way in about 20 minutes, but lock and load for this. So I kind of cut that short. At the end of it, they're talking to him, and he kind of says, you know, well, what's Sarah saying? And they're saying, well, we're not going to tell you what Sarah's saying. And Sarah's being vague anyway, so we don't, there's nothing even really to say. And at one point, the police officer treats him with utmost fairness. He says, you know, George, what happened here tonight? And he just kind of shakes his head. He knows he's going to jail anyway. And the officer says, like, so you're just not going to tell me what's going on? And he doesn't say anything. And he says to George, he goes, George, I can't help you if you don't tell me what's happening. I think this police officer who was there detected that it wasn't all just one-sided, as the defense would now have you believe. And these videos that you're about to see from Sarah continue to blow up the narrative that Sarah was being bullied by him.
You know, Marines does make a point. Keep playing it, John. But unless he's so tired of dealing with her that he's completely giving up on fighting her.
_0665.
It's also possible that he just wanted a place to sleep. People go to jail for that all the time. That's true.
Yeah. So here's a video of him being recorded in a Coca-Cola shirt. He says, Sarah, I want to know where you're going. And he'll explain why.
And you're gonna let me leave.
Yes. Just let me know where you're going.
And I get to leave the house.
Yes.
Exit.
Just let me know where you're going so at least I know where you're at.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I love you.
So it's not yank me back in the house and sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up?
No.
Yank.
No. Just let me know where you're going so I know where you're at. So if you don't come back, there's no certain time. You don't have to come home at a certain time because I'm not. You're grown up. I just want to know that if it does surpass a certain time, that's like, shit, where's she at? I know where you told me.
Is he striking you as jealous or concerned right now?
A little bit of both. But,
Okay.
but I wouldn't be shocked if he's like, you could be dead in a suitcase somewhere, Sarah.
So that way I can go and...
So I'm not allowed to have friends.
Yes, nobody said you can't have friends.
I can just go see Boo.
You can go see whoever. I just don't want you to go frolicking with male friends.
So there's something there. Whether or not she's allowed to go see Boo, I think there's some past history there. You have to remember, because she locked him in the suitcase and said, "This is what it feels like when you cheat on me." I think it was maybe at least mutual.
Mm-hmm.
By yourself, because you know what's happened already. You understand what I'm saying?
So I get to go see Boo.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I get to go see Boo.
I don't care about Boo. You can go to see Boo. Do you understand what I'm saying, though?
We'll continue on with more videos. In this video, they were recording each other for a while, but Sarah is doing this to humiliate him. He's pulling, in my opinion, just my opinion, he's pulling out his phone here to attempt to bring some levity or to diffuse the situation. Make no mistake, though, just so you understand the context of this, Sarah's doing this. Sarah is pissed.
You filming me, filming you.
What's the latest thing you've done me wrong by?
Man, I watch porno.
So he just made an admission that Sarah caught him, taking indecent liberties with himself.
Hey. Wait. It stopped.
My hands hurt.
I got it. Also, I was watching porno and she don't like that. I'm not shrugging my shoulders or anything like that. Like it's not no big deal.
After you begged and pled and cried.
Yeah.
I'm gonna trust you.
I know. I'm not shrugging my shoulders.
Say it. Begged, pled, cried.
You begged.
I didn't. You did.
Well, whatever. I know. Okay, yeah, I did.
Say it.
I begged and
Pled. And cried. For me to trust you.
For you to trust me. But again, I'm not sure.
Did you?
Did I watch porno again? Yes, I did. But
good.
So Bat makes an excellent comment here. He says he literally seems to be the one suffering from battered spouse syndrome. Of course, it's not mutually exclusive. They could both have it. But doesn't he seem especially meek to you? I mean, does this shock you at all based off of like your original opinion of George Torres, based off of nothing at all?
Is it meek or manipulative? Like he just like
could be
you
both.
You ever see that Linda meme, that little kid that's like Linda, like just trying to talk his way out of everything. Like in other words, if he just goes along with it and he's honest about it, she'll agree with him and they could just move on or whatever. But yeah, he definitely looks like a whipped puppy. They're the defense even said this in the opening arguments. Like they were down and out. They were horrible for each other. They're in a very volatile relationship. It was bad.
It was bad. And I'm not trying to show these videos to imply that it's all one-sided, but it's just these videos got played in court today in front of the jury right before they left. This was their lasting impression before they walked out of that courtroom today. And they got to see that Sarah is not this wonderful person that she keeps pointing herself out to be. And you're about to hear
the victim that she keeps pointing herself out.
Even more sickening stuff to come. Hold on, Tyler.
I'm gonna go to court and I'm gonna tell the judge, listen, my fiance has nothing to do with it. It's all my fault. We were both drinking and it got out of hand. It's an isolated situation. It has never happened before. I love my fiance. She's a good woman. Never been in trouble in her life. She has a 7-year-old son that she loves and cherishes.
A blind Boston Terrier.
She has 2 dogs. One is blind, one is deaf. She goes around and she's driving and sees an animal that's injured. She'll stop in the middle of the street, no matter what kind of traffic it is, just to make sure that that animal doesn't get injured any more than where it already has. We both love each other. We both live together. Yes, every relationship has their arguments, but we are not the type of people that you guys are portraying us to be.
She
especially her.
She
right,
especially.
You're right, though. She just wants everyone to think that she is a saint. That's all she cares about. She cares about her image alone. That's it.
She's telling him, in case you couldn't understand it, he's saying, I will go in front of the judge and I will say that my fiance is this beautiful, wonderful person. She's a saint. She's got a dog and a boy that she cares about. If she sees an animal in the street, she will stop regardless of the traffic to make sure she takes care of that animal. Whatever this problem is that he's talking about was an isolated incident, which just, if you're the judge, just say like, how many times the police been to your house? Get out of here. get out of here. And I didn't even show all the body cam. Like, it was cut for brevity, the number of times, the number of police body cam visits by the police they had today. I didn't even show them all. I just showed a typical one or the best one. But he says, she's an angel, or like, we don't do this. We're good people. She especially.
So please, if you can,
Dismiss.
dismiss this case.
Close.
Drop it. She is not that type of person.
Good person.
She's a great person.
Angel.
I know she'd be an angel. She's close to it.
Best thing that has ever happened to you.
Yes, ma'am. I love you to death. And I hate that we're going through this right now.
Sonnet.
What?
And they did.
Good, I love you, baby. What else you want to say? God will prevail and will take us out of this situation. Love you.
She's cooked. She's done.
So you remember this. So you remember this. Are you drunk right now?
No, man.
How much alcohol did you drink?
Not enough to be drunk.
You're slurring your words. You're sleeping up against the door right now.
Yeah, because I want to be next to you.
Did I not tell you to not bother me?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is it you come up and do? What time is it right now? It's 1:20 a.m.
Okay. I haven't bothered you since then. I just go to sleep.
But didn't I tell you before at 9:30 to not bother me at all?
Yes.
Because why?
You have to work tomorrow.
Nope. Because I've been up since 4 a.m. since yesterday when you fucked with me.
Yes, ma'am.
I know how much vodka was in that bottle. And what's the bottle now?
Kind of to throw it out. Maybe
What does that mean?
one more drink.
The bottle's empty. I know how much vodka was in there. Enough for 2 people to have a really good time. And who drank it?
I did.
I want it to be documented that I'm leaving you, which means that you're getting out.
Leaving me.
You're getting out.
What about?
You're getting out.
Nobody's leaving nobody. Stop. I haven't done nothing.
And the reason why you were even downstairs and weak enough to get drunk was because you don't give a shit about me. You don't listen to what I say. Special things that I keep on my front page of my phone so I remember to tell you about it because of how special and fun it is. I always bother you. I always bore you. You don't listen to me. Yesterday was my first day at work, remember? And I ended up 90% hearing about your day and 10% about mine.
You don't bother me or anything like that when you talk. I mean, sometimes you just you overwhelm me. That's the problem, you overwhelm me.
By telling you about my first day at work?
No, dude, you just overwhelm me about every other thing too. It's not just, first day at work.
So I'm overwhelming you by telling you about the 4th highest paid baseball player. That's a client of ours.
I'm not starstruck.
I don't even know who the guy is.
I don't need.
So the reason why, so you fully admit now that you didn't care and you did brush me off in the car. Midway sentence. Because you're not into baseball.
No, I didn't. I'm just saying.
I want to go to sleep. Go downstairs.
Okay, yeah. I know.
I'm leaving you, and I'm going to try and cancel plane tickets.
No.
Because I don't do special things for people like you that are doing this, like, to me, after I asked you at 1:21 in the morning.
I'm not doing it.
I wanted to be asleep. I wanted to stay asleep, which is why I got in the bed at 8:30.
I know I'm not doing it.
I told you not to step foot in the bedroom. So what do? Nonetheless, you're drunk. The amount of alcohol, I know how much was out, I know how much was in there. That's why I could smell you in the bed before you actually got me up. I can smell you from here. You're despicable.
How am I despicable? I'm not even doing anything.
Leave me alone.
Okay.
I'm cowering in a corner right now.
Keep filming when it's looking like. Good night, Sarah. Love you.
I don't love you. I don't like you. I don't want to be with you.
Drew, where was the constant fear that she lived in? Can you believe how? I mean, it's heartbreaking. This was this man's whole life. I honestly believe that if he made a mess on the floor, she would literally grab him and rub his nose in it like he's a dog.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely the type. You know, yeah, that's right. I don't have words. I do have words, but I don't have words.
It's really shocking because we at some point we say, well, they're too toxic. They're, drawn to each other because they're both kind of bad people. I'm not saying George is perfect. I'm sure he wasn't. But I honestly, when you're a police officer, Drew, and you're trying to decide who needs to go to jail, you're looking at a predominant aggressor, moving past probable cause. But if you were going to look at this couple just based off of the last couple of videos you saw, it's not a contest exactly, but who do you think's the predominant aggressor? Who do you think really is the bad guy in the relationship? I know that's a judgment call and it's not policey, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, keeping it that's heartbreaking. It really, I mean, on a few levels there, if I ever get around to writing this book that I want to write, I had, when I was when I felt like I had had enough alcohol, when I was making the decision of whether I was going to go into rehab or not, I actually had 3 different calls where I saw 3 signs of, and it was it's going to sound stupid. I don't care. I experienced it. It actually happened to me. So, but it was basically, the Twilight Zone that is a takeoff on A Christmas Carol. I mean, it was like 3 different ghosts that I saw on 3 different days at 3 different calls where something was showing me this is you, dude. This one is you. This one is you in the past. This one is you kind of now, and this is what you could be. And they were just really compelling stories. So, I have a little bit of room for the Georges of the world. He's, when she was talking about, I know how much I know how much vodka is in that bottle. Then the other part too is I know the Sarah part of this too. She's I know how much vodka was in that bottle, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
You drank the whole thing, and now you're coming up here, and all I want to do is go to bed. And so there are a couple of layers to all of this, for me personally, but it's kind of heartbreaking to see this guy. He's look, he even said while he was cowering there, She's like,
Yeah, she's telling him to leave him alone, and he's just like,
he's like,
I
I'm
just
not
want to
doing
go to sleep
anything.
too. Yeah.
I'm not even fucking doing anything. I'm just like, I'm at your whim here. But this is the enlightening part of this, back to the professional part of me. The enlightening part of this is that they warned this attorney that when you bring up this battered spouse, all of this is coming in. We're bringing all of the videos, we're bringing all of the photos, all of the past reports. If you don't claim that, we can't even use it. We can't even introduce it. But once you claim it, you've opened the door. And I think the judge warned them, the state definitely warned them, which to me probably tells you that that's what she was going for with all of these other attorneys. And all these other attorneys are like, no, you've actually just had a psychiatrist evaluate you, and she said that that was not in play. Now, what happens is, making trial decisions, when they tell you that it's not in play, but you assert it anyway, that opens the door for the state to do X, Y, and Z. And that's exactly what the state is doing. The state is doing X, Y, and Z. So now there is nothing but sympathy for George. Nothing. And like I said at the top of the show, I have a little room of sympathy or empathy anyway for Sarah, because she did get the shit beat out of her a lot. She was in a horrible relationship.
It was horrible for both of them. It's true.
It was horrible for both of them, and she stuck around just as much as he stuck around, because they always found a way back to each other. That's the way it was.
What I go back
characterized or
to though is
described.
when he's sitting on the bed and he says, as usual, it was my fault and I'm
Yeah.
in the wrong. And the defense showed the pictures of her injuries, because it's the crux of their case that it was an intimate violence situation. And I'm not undoing anything. I'm just mentioning what the prosecution said. But the prosecution said, go ahead and look at all these photos. And they showed it to the psychiatrist who we watched earlier tonight. So you see all these photos of all these injuries? She goes, yeah, I see that. I see that. I see that. And he goes, looking at all these photos, can you tell who the aggressor was? And she goes, no. So, I mean, it could have been that she just gave as good as she got.
Yeah, it's because you can't determine on a photograph who the aggressor is. Like, there are some things that, there are some indicators, like when you go to a domestic violence scene and you get the statement from one half and they have like scratches on their neck, and that is a general indication that they were defending themselves. They were not necessarily the aggressor, like they were trying to pull the person off of them or whatever. There are little indicators like that, but from a photograph of a black eye, you can't, there's no way you can make that judgment. All she has to do is say, like, if that were the case, all she would have to do is say, well, yeah, he punched me in the eye. Well, in reality, she could have just taken that baseball bat and punched herself in the eye.
Which happens, by the way.
It does happen. I mean, like, and it's sad. It's horrible. But so there was something that I wanted to address a long time ago too. Detslav says, I missed this part about the kid. Well, in the recap I did of day one, I don't remember if I left this in there or not, but her ex-husband, Brian Boone, testified on the stand. And he said that he got a drunk dial from Sarah late, after midnight, maybe midnight-ish, the night all of that happened. And she was going on, and he admitted, like, look, she woke me out of a dead sleep. I had work the next day, and I wasn't paying attention. And plus, she calls me like that all the time. Like, you could just kind of tell, like, this is why we're not married. She's a fucking drunk. Like, so he says all that. And then he says, I started calling her once I woke up the next morning because it's Monday. It's time to transfer custody of the kid. And though the kid's at school, they ask him, well, why are you trying so hard to get a hold of her if you know that the kid's going to school and it's her day? And his answer was shocking. His answer was, well, there had been instances in the past where she just didn't get them. And so all I was trying to do was to make sure that she was actually going to pick him up. So when she's playing the victim of being, you know, the single mom, or I got my kid with me, or all that bullshit, alcohol controlled her life, and she tried to control everybody else's life. So she was not a great mom to that kid. I don't know if, you know, maybe the relationship is different now because she's been sober for 4 years, and, you know, your brain does rewire a little bit, but her focus and emphasis was on alcohol. That was the point of those text messages, by the way, that they read in court.
She's more than just alcohol, though. I mean, the psychiatrist said, like, she's got narcissistic traits, and sure enough, lots of us do. Probably you and I have a few narcissistic traits. It's possible. I mean, the fact that we think that we could get on YouTube and people want to watch us is a little bit narcissistic, right?
Yes.
But she's more than just the drink. She's got some serious issues. I mean, you just saw those videos where she was commanding George to say to the judge that she's a beautiful person, a wonderful person.
Yeah, why say that? Like, why do you need to say that?
It's really over the top, but it's heartbreaking what happened to George. And one of our commenters said earlier, just that it looks like he is, you know, battered spouse. Drew, we got a phone call coming in from Tennessee. Would you mind if I took it?
Please do.
Let's do it.
Call from Cupcakes.
Cupcakes, you're on the line. Go ahead.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Is she in jail?
That's just how my phone works.
Oh, okay.
Cupcakes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thanks for calling into the Comm Center. What are your thoughts?
Hey, I was just going to say thank you all for getting me interested in this episode with or in this case with your, like, 3-episode saga, because now I've been obsessed for, like, going on a year and a half and spent innumerable hours looking into this and aggravated the crap out of my husband talking about a case he doesn't give a flipping shit about. So,
yeah, I see that, Cakes. Like, half the world really cares about this, and then the other half is like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody cares about
like pretty much nobody but you all crazies over there care about it.
Cupcakes, my question for you, as I put it to you, if you're on the jury, do you see her as someone who's in fear, or do you see him as being in fear?
No, I don't see her as being in fear at all. I mean, I'm sure there's probably points in their relationship in which they were both in fear of each other, but at the time this happened, I don't see her being in fear at all. I don't think he did anything to her that much.
What do you make out of these videos? I mean, don't they seem like she's trying to humiliate him? I mean, at one point she confronts him that, you know, he's been looking at pornography, and confronts him about how in the past he had been in trouble for this, and that he had begged and cried, you know, take me back. I promise to be faithful to you, be the person that you want me to be, or whatever. And she's recording all this. You know, when he was drunk in the hallway, she was saying, it's so you remember. But I mean, she gets pleasure out of this. Case in point, when he's back in, no pun intended, when he's back in the suitcase, her phone comes out. She's ready to humiliate him all the time this way.
Yeah. I mean, the only video that I saw, I guess, that would give me second thoughts about and prove the fact, like, yeah, this guy's violent too, is the video that they showed of him, like, completely destroying the TV with the baseball bat and pointing the baseball bat directly at her. I'm like, this guy is not an innocent dude. Like, he's got his problems too, for sure.
Without a doubt.
So that one kind of had me, you know, and the picture that they showed of her leg, like where he stabbed her in her leg, I was like, ooh, that stab wound is actually a lot bigger than I pictured it being at the first description of what happened. And when I saw it, I was like, that's not very small.
Well, so that it's interesting you say that, because stab wounds are normally deep, so they're thin. They're like, if you ever saw a stabbing victim that had been cleaned up afterwards, the you know, the little marks on them are tiny, and that was like a centipede basically on her thing. So I don't know if he, like, you know,
more of a slash.
Yeah, if he slashed her.
Yeah,
if he stabbed her,
I wonder
then
if he like drug it down.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I was wondering, if he like stabbed her and then drug it.
Now, let me ask you this. Where do you think we would be at right now if everything that you're talking about, slashing, stabbing, baseball bats, where would we be if the sex roles were reversed? If we were talking about a man who got drunk and yelled at a woman in a hallway for drinking and said, I don't love you, I don't like you, I don't want you, and that same woman wound up in a suitcase, do you think that this would be over by now? Do you think that we would have any doubt? Go ahead.
No, he would have gotten life. He would have gotten life for sure. And the fact that she's not even, is she even up for life?
She is.
I think she is, right?
I don't think it's I don't think it's a life sentence because it's second degree. Here, let me look.
I think she is eligible for life. I think it's likely that mitigating circumstances will be taken into account, particularly since both psychiatrists did say she had battered spouse. That could go into it, and so they could give her a reduced sentence of say like 20 years or something like that. She could be looking at some serious hard time. On the other hand, she could be sentenced to a rather light sentence with time served. And in Florida, you only have to serve like 85% of your sentence as long as you're being good, or if you get a meritorious award for helping out an officer or something inside the prison. All of these things could affect it too. But she's looking at some serious time, and I think she was a fool to pass up that plea bargain.
You're right though. It is a a life felony. So it says the minimum is 16 3/4 years in prison, without the chance of parole. The maximum is sentences.
No, I thought that they were saying something about when she rejected the 15-year plea deal that whatever it was, that second degree, the minimum was like 22.5 years, like minimum.
Well, there could be aggravating circumstances such as if there could be aggravating factors if it's domestic violence and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that.
The other thing is like I said, she can get good time and things like that. So sentencing is always confusing, but just if we can walk away with something better than 9 years, if she had taken that 15-year plea deal with time served and then the 85% thing, she'd be looking at about 9 years. So if she gets more than that, then she'll be a chump for rejecting that plea.
Oh yeah, definitely. We all know she's going to be a chump for rejecting it anyway, but
what I don't want to see is for her to go free and have all the rights to her books or whatever to negotiate those things, and then I don't want her to feel vindicated. I think that would be the biggest injustice to George, is that she felt like she was in the right and that jury acquits her. And like Drew said earlier in the show, Casey Anthony, it's alleged that she killed her daughter because it was an inconvenience for her beautiful life, her lifestyle of being a party girl. And she feels vindicated now. And the last thing I would want is for another Florida jury to get it so wrong. So I'm really worried about that.
My biggest concern, I think, I'm not so much worried about her getting off. I am worried about the possibility of a mistrial, just from every bit of insanity this circus has brought about. Like, I'm afraid that the jury is going to be like, we've had too many opinions thrown at us. There's been too many hiccups. Like, I'm afraid that the jury will not have confidence enough in the way the case has been presented from either side to render any sort of decision.
Drew,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, I'm not worried about the jury. I think the jury's probably not going to take.
I think the jury will get it, but they're going to have so many grounds for appeals. Every time an ejection is thrown in this case, it's a new grounds for appeal. The whole thing with her at one point being said that she had forfeited her right to an attorney. Just that alone, taking that and say like, hey, at some point she was on her own here, and it affected this case because as her attorney finally does jump in at the end, he's not given any of that leverage. He's not given any of those continuances. Case in point today. He's a good lawyer, I'm sure, but he still was he looked like an ass because he didn't have a whole grasp on what was going on, and he was playing catch up. He was saying he was ambushed. He was saying that there was prosecutorial misconduct. He was doing every single thing he could. It felt like desperation today.
So those errors.
Oh, it was.
Those errors and those issues that's where I worry about the mistrial, but it's the judge that has to declare the mistrial, and he's already, I won't say on board. He's just saying your argument has no merit. So I'm not worried about the jury creating the mistrial. I am worried about a procedure creating a mistrial, but I think at this point the judge is probably like, no, we're going to get this over with. It's going to be done. And if the higher court decides it needs to come back, then we'll do that. But
This judge is good and he's smart and he's well prepared. Like case in point today, when the attorney for the defense was saying, well, I want to refer to this and this, he goes, everything you just referred to, first of all, it makes no case, but then it applies to this other, anxiety thing that she has. It applies to her alcohol abuse. It doesn't apply. This case law that you're referring to doesn't apply to the battered spouse syndrome, and it doesn't apply to the PTSD. So why are you bringing this up? And, it was just a desperation move. He's objecting and creating some seam through which he can run through later on in appeals when he's talking to an appellate judge and say, hey, I brought up this case law and this judge said no. What do you think about it? And they may decide like, well, that was reversible error right there. So that would be the worst thing too, I think, is if she's acquitted, but also just if we have to go through it all again,
Now, I don't know, and I'm just curious about this. If for some reason that happened, like say she was convicted, then she succeeded with an appeal request or whatever, does it automatically go back to the same judge as the first, or does it go to a different judge? Like, would Koenig end up having this all over again, or would it go to somebody else?
I'm pretty sure it would just go right back to I don't know about that.
Because the reason why I asked, I'm like just sitting here thinking, poor Judge Koenig, if it does happen, if she is convicted and then for whatever reason she does win an appeal and then she ends up right back in his court, the man will just want to go walk off a cliff somewhere.
I was thinking more of the mistrial. I think if it's appealed and it comes back to it comes back to that circuit court, the lower court, it's not going to end up in front of him. I don't think. I think because
I don't know how that stuff works.
Yeah, I think though a mistrial might, like if he might have to try it again if some kind of mistrial happened.
I think that's what happened. Isn't that what happened in the is it the Karen Reed case that's currently going on in? They had a mistrial and now they're having to go back through it again.
They had a bunch of problems with that. They ended up a lot of the jurors ended up coming forward. The issue with the Karen Reed trial was the jury instructions. So they assumed that they had to determine guilt on all charges when in actuality they didn't. They were supposed to determine guilt on each charge, guilt or innocence, or guilty, not guilty on each charge. They ended up just blanket or a lesser included offense, or there was something like that. But man, that whole case is shady. I mean, that's something to watch also. But apparently, a lot of the jurors came forward and said, no. We had acquitted her on the manslaughter part. We're still were the only thing that we were split on is the DUI part, or there was some other maybe DUI with serious bodily injury or something. Like the first part we were unanimous, the second part no, and that's why it was a quote hung jury. That's why it was dismissed.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I just wanted to call in and say that I need to hop off here because I'm actually standing outside of my house to talk to you all so I don't wake up anybody in my house, and I'm fucking freezing to death. So,
well, you get in there. Thanks for calling. Go inside and wake up everyone and tell them to watch the Comm Center, though. We appreciate it.
Have a good night, guys.
Yep. Take care.
Yeah.
You too.
Yep, bye. Drew, we actually got a second call while that was going on. I'm going to call him back.
Say that. Like, why do you need to say that?
It's really over the top, but it's heartbreaking what happened to George. And one of our commenters said earlier, just it looks like he is battered spouse. Drew, I'm backing ourselves up here. Sorry about that. I'm going to call back someone else that we had call us earlier.
Okay.
That was a technical glitch. This is what it means to go live.
Time travel.
Hello? This is the Comm
Yes,
Center.
hello?
Hello?
This is
hello?
This is John calling from the Comm Center. How are you?
Good. I think I was talking over you. Sorry. I'm the caller that said, the person in the chat who said the thing about the battered spouse syndrome. On there, my name is Bat.
What's up, Bat?
We'll go ahead with everything. You were making some excellent points earlier. Like I was like very minuscule on the screen, but like I was cheering you on. So for those of you who are just listening, because we're actually a podcast too, I want you to just say everything that you feel about this case. The floor is yours.
Yeah. So essentially, especially watching that video, and then you juxtapose that with the cross-examination that Attorney Jay, I don't know his last name, did with Sarah Boone, where he was like basically saying, so you treated this guy like a child, where you were basically scheduling his day, you had him doing arts and crafts and painting and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. You look at that and you look at the humiliation of him on those videos, and it really does seem like he was the one who suffered from battered spouse syndrome.
Yeah,
it seems
right.
It seems like she basically lorded over him and ruled him, you know?
I completely agree. You're right. You're so right with the arts and crafts and everything. It's she does see herself as, she sees herself as superior to him, and the fact that he also calls her ma'am too. I mean,
right.
You know, that's not common between intimate partners. You know, and the videotaping too. To me, that's just, it's very humiliating.
Yeah, she probably played those things back to him multiple times to just, you know, to humiliate him repeatedly.
Or friends.
It was obviously, or her, yeah, to her friends, his family, whoever in the world she wanted to humiliate him to. Did y'all hear that the ex-husband also said that she was abusive in that relationship?
No, I hadn't heard that. I don't know if he testified to it or not, but I missed it if he did, but I had not heard that.
No, that he didn't testify to it. I believe it was, it was the attorney who brought that up, and I don't remember which testimony he brought that up in, but he said wait a second, it wasn't. Let me back up. It was that psychiatrist from today who brought it up. Yeah. She said, actually, I believe it was the spouse who said, her ex-spouse who said that he was abused also.
Yeah. Wow. The forensic psychiatrist has said that often that she was the aggressor. And for me, that totally flipped the script. Because again, like I went back to the beginning, and we covered this case starting late last year, I think. But it was like, it's so absurd, right? Like they're playing a game and he gets into his suitcase. It's like, we all that was absurd, and it's kind of why this case is clickbaity, but it's like we also just at some point we stopped questioning how absurd that was. And then when you flip the script and when you realize that Sarah is really, really, really a bully and abusive and pushy, and just the physical difference, like, you know, George being 100 pounds soaking wet, you know, they can go toe to toe physically. You know, the fact that he can even die in his suitcase, it just says so much about their interpersonal relationship. And you watch these videos where he's just, I mean, wasn't it heartbreaking where he says, "Good night, Sarah, I love you," and she says, "I don't love you. I don't like you.
Yep, I don't love you. Exactly.
And I don't want you." And he just slunk away into the night.
It was just like, I felt that.
It was like watching a whipped dog.
Yeah. Well, I have no doubt that her ex-husband has been probably at least pushed around by her emotionally, if not physically. And I'm sure the only reason why he's still around is because they got a kid in common.
Well, let's hold on. Let's talk about this for a second, because I think that's the biggest loser of this whole trial, if I'm not mistaken. Here's this guy, Brian Boone. He saw that he needed to get away from this psycho of a woman. He divorced her. They had a kid together, but he's like, "I want you out of my life." She turns around and gets hooked up with this other guy, and trouble ensues. Now he's getting drunk dials, and he's still got a co-parent, so it's a pain in the ass anyway. And then all of a sudden she's now like the most famous name on YouTube, basically, Sarah Boone. But that's his last name. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he's right. Like, what's this got to do with me? Like, well, I knew she was a psycho.
You wouldn't let him out of her orbit, though.
Right. Oh no, that's true. Like, I guess he could have just like completely cut. But you know, in the interest of the kid and all that. But I guess they just lived a couple minutes away or a couple minutes apart from one another. But man, you talk about like, I saw the handwriting on the wall, and I got rid of her, and I excised, or exorcised this demon out of my life, so to speak. She's still going to be in it, but now she's put me front and center on the stand testifying against her, and now we got psychiatrists coming in revealing information that I gave to them, and I kind of feel bad for this guy. Like he didn't ask for any of this.
Not
And then
even just that. She said that he was that his house was the one she would go to when they fell out. So he was constantly involved in their mess repeatedly, even after he tried to exorcise that demon.
he was sick and tired of her, and because one of those text messages was like, "Get help, Sarah. God bless you. Merry Christmas. God bless you, but get help, or do something with your life or something." And she was like, that's when she said, "I will get rid of him." And then it said something, and then my life will be better. And then it said Torres or something like that right after. I mean, he was telling her, he was warning her, like, just, you're a mess. Stay away from me. Just get away.
Right.
Little did he know.
Yeah, little did any of them know, right? That man would obviously literally do anything. I mean, George, he would do anything that she told him. That's how he sat there and ended up stuck in a suitcase.
Yeah.
Now his life is over. Like you said, the ex-husband is involved in a bunch of mess. And I guess we'll see how the jury rules. Yeah, he didn't ask for any of this.
It's shocking. It's sad. I feel bad for George's family too, because it's like, it's not only did their loved one die, but like, so we kind of talk lately about it here, that he died in a suitcase. Like, it's sad in reality, but it's also like so bizarre, and it's easy to make fun of. And as much as his life was maybe messed up, he's a brother, he's a son, and now he's also a punchline in like the weirdest murder ever.
Right.
He's
but
gonna
it
be.
Also is a. Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say it's also proof positive of how deep that mental component of abuse is. All abuse, whether it's the physical or the emotional or whatever, is basically an attempt to exert like psychological control over somebody, and it's a sign. It shows just how deep that can go. The mental control that you can have over another person.
Amen.
That they will literally sit there and let you zip them up in a suitcase to the point that they're no longer here.
Right. Even after begging and pleading.
That
video,
just,
right.
It's so sad to watch. I mean, it does put that video into a different context too. He's just like, he knows he's losing this battle. Like, Sarah, I can't breathe, babe. I'm telling you, I can't breathe.
And at a point, probably just gave up.
Yeah, there has to be a point. But you know what? There was also some interesting theories that like his hand came out and she hit it with the bat, stuff like that. So she's going away for a long time, I think, as she should.
And she deserves to.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for calling in. I like getting a new caller. I guess I just encourage you to.
Yeah, this is actually my first time visiting y'all channel.
Well, I'm really glad that you're here. We've been going almost 2 years now. Drew has been a police officer in Florida almost 30 years. He was a patrol officer. He was a detective. He did a whole bunch of stuff. I'm a real life 911 dispatcher. So normally what we do on this show, and we did it a little bit earlier, is we break down 911 calls and then we show the police response. So we're on all the podcast platforms. You can go back, check out our back catalog. We just hope that you enjoy the show, and we're here on Thursday nights, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you come back.
We're glad you're here, back.
Yeah, definitely. I subscribe, and I'll definitely be back. But let me go ahead and get off this phone.
Well, thank you so much for calling. We really appreciate you. Hope you have a good night.
Y'all as well. Bye.
Take care. That was really cool, Drew. I like that.
Yeah, I love it.
Any other closing thoughts before we just kind of go back to our show as usual?
No, I mean, I really, I got engrossed in this thing when we're having a good time at picking the winners, and I that's what I kind of like about us. Like, we kind of have the same psyche. Like, we know a diamond in the rough when we see it. And this was yours, if I'm not mistaken, Sarah Boone.
I don't want to take all the credit for the murder of George Torres,
but right, I fought it for as long as I could. But man, what a case it turned out to be. for us though, but this is why we're in it though. We're in it for it had everything that we cover. It has the elements of the 911 call.
The
We had a
interrogation.
911, we can show the importance of the 911 dispatcher because she testified in this thing. We just, you found additional 911 calls from today. Then there's also the body cam that we go through that we're able to kind of dissect and do that. And then I've got trial experience. John's got court experience. Like, we can take you through the court experience too. So this is the kind of stuff I love doing. That's right up the alley. YouTube is just kind of trying to find an audience for us, which I appreciate. So they'll come to us, I think, in due time. But these are the cases to me. This and of course Hannah Payne. I don't think I'm gonna go another show without mentioning
Well,
Hannah Payne.
I have to bring up Hannah Payne right now because Hannah Payne was, if for those of you who aren't familiar, Hannah Payne is serving life in prison in Georgia. Hannah Payne is another case that we covered. We did actually a whole summer series on it, nine or so parts about Hannah Payne. To contrast, Hannah Payne was a young girl, 20 years old. She witnessed a car accident. There was a guy in a Dodge Dakota, fled the scene. She wanted to give the best possible information to the police. His tag number, his location, his direction of travel. His vehicle was smashed up to the point where he eventually stalled out. She approached him and said, "Hey, the police want us to come back." She showed him the phone, say, "Hey, I'm on the phone with 911. He grabbed her, started pulling her in the car. Her shirt was torn. She's carrying a pistol to protect herself. She's a young girl. She's 20. Pulls up the pistol because she's being pulled in the car, and I think even the car was moving. Pistol goes off. Guy inside the car ends up dying, and it's a tragedy. She's serving life in prison. She got first-degree murder and second-degree murder, if I'm not wrong. They gave her both somehow. She had heat of passion and malice of forethought and false imprisonment, which, by the way, he's in a car on the road. How do you get false imprisonment? So in Georgia, you've got this girl, 20 years old, who's serving first-degree, second-degree murder at the same time, and she was trying to do the right thing. She was trying to help police. And now, so she gets first-degree murder for trying to help the police, whereas you have Sarah Boone down in Florida zipping up a man in his suitcase and recording his death. And she's only eligible for second degree and looking at possibly, we were discussing it earlier, 9 years, 10 years, maybe up to life, but something significantly less could also happen. It's just amazing.
Yeah. We're going to do, if we can't relate it to the OJ case somehow, as we did.
Or Menendez, like this case.
The Menendez murders.
This case has overlaps with Menendez too, because they were claiming family violence and abuse, and it was kind of like, it was kind of what they relied on. And they, the jury, they're getting tons of sympathy now and support because people believe them. So are people going to believe that Sarah Boone was? And here's the sad thing, just Menendez, is they didn't have the technology, right? Like whatever their relationship was like with their father, there's no videos to prove it, so it's a totally different world now, but very similar things going on there, and they're gaining support. So I wonder if, someday, if Sarah does go away for a long time, if 20 years from now, there'll be a second wave of true crime people who send out support for her. I just never know.
Yep.
Drew's got to go to bed. He normally wakes up at 6 in the morning to mow his lawn.
Mow the sidewalks.
We're the Comm Center with Drew Breezy. Again, Drew's got 30 years of experience. I'm a 911 dispatcher. We're here every Thursday breaking down new cases for you. Drew's, are you going to take off? You going to bed?
Yeah. If you're going to continue, I'm going to fall asleep sitting here.
All right. He's going to go to sleep, guys. And I'll take over the show from here. I'm just going to respond to the comments. Normally what we do on the after show. Good night, Drew. I love you.
Love all of you.
You have a good night, buddy. I'm just...